I'm never totally ready for anything.
I know. I just kind of like to fly by the seat of my pants sometimes as well, which does not work when you're lecturing classes. I did that on the scientific revolution, and it was, I wasn't too excited, but I wrote my lecture and everything, but it was basically like the philosophy part of the lecture, fine, natural sciences. And then I had to get into Copernicus and all of Galileo and Francis Bacon, and I got bored, and I was like, man, you guys bored? Let's go home.
Now, when you say you wrote the lecture,
so I have a book.
do you make little?
Yeah, like I print off like bare bones notes, take them to class.
Okay.
So yeah, but yeah, I try to go in prepared, but it's some topics are they're hard to be passionate about. I'm sure you might run into the same thing here and there with like you have such a wide variety of products. So, well, okay, so we're recording, and I'll go ahead. It's 2 Brians in the studio this afternoon.
Both spelt with an I?
I think that's important to note.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time to come on. Brian Chenowith, Valley Piano here in Russellville, Arkansas, but you've also got an online store and stuff too, if anybody...
Working on it.
Yeah, working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, we have a lot of similar interest, I suppose. I've enjoyed coming and talking with you at the music store, and you've graciously hooked me up with our digital recorder here and have provided advice and cables and this and that. So I'm honored to have you on. What have you been up to, man? You got what's life in the music business like?
It's been okay. We're with spring break this week.
Us too. Like my kids' class on Monday was like, well, I know Tuesday jiu-jitsu I usually have 15. I had 1 kid. They got a private lesson. So
yeah, everywhere. I mean, you drive around town and all the parking lots are pretty empty.
Yeah,
we'll go out to eat somewhere and no lines really to wait.
Good times
to get in. So I mean, it's been a little slow this week, but really from January up until now, it's been pretty decent. We actually had a better January than we did in December. Yeah,
we are. I mean, spring break's the exception, but our classes have been really big. Like noon class, evening class, larger than average, and it's so we're growing and stuff. But and then Russellville's growing too.
Right. I drive by in the evenings, and your parking lot's always packed.
I know, it's insane. I think the fire department's after us. But they called us conveniently that they wanted to schedule a walkthrough.
Really?
It's like, we're going to need you to come by at this time when there's not a lot of people here. So
well, we might not want to talk about capacity.
Well, no, I'm never over capacity, but I bet it's parking that they're... upset about, because I had Sorrells, this guy that owns like the body shop and stuff here in town, he owns half that lot in front of us, and he has graciously allowed us to park there.
Right.
So that's nice, but that property is all vacant, and it's starting to get bought up, and Tech's been buying up a lot of property, so it's a nice time to be over there.
Yeah.
But we're growing really, and we have room to build, but we're just always catching up, it seems like.
Have you heard anything about the guy in Conway putting stores and living apartments in that area?
Okay, yes, I have. Is it the place where Zaza's is at?
Zaza's.
It's like
in Conway.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've eaten there, but if you haven't, if you like pizza, man.
Panera Bread.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Same spot. Spot. Yeah, that same, I don't know if it's going to be the same businesses or whatever, is all going in over there by the old Georgia Carpet Mill. Or perhaps, I do know Tech, like further down between like me and Phoenix, where you turn to go into the university there for the overpass that they just built. There's that big lot like back in there after the woods.
Right.
This just kind of off the road. Apparently, that's where that might be going.
Yeah, and I've also heard that a company is building some student housing.
Yes, that may be where the student housing's going, and then there's going to be the apartments and the businesses over on like El Paso.
Right.
So we're like 3 blocks over from right there, and like
right in the center.
Jeff Woods, he keeps coming in. He's one of the deans, and he's like, man, they keep doing a lot of stuff, and they've bought more land, and a lot of those houses, there's some houses over around where we're at, and they're for sale. So I bet Tech ends up possibly buying those.
Right.
The same guy owns a lot of that stuff over there. So, yeah. Well, so, I think I kind of told you this, but like I didn't even go. I mean, I like probably been in your store maybe a half a dozen times over the years for. I need some picks. I need a cable, whatever.
Right.
But I didn't go to a music store for a long time, and was just like buying online until I got into podcasting. And you've been awesome about customer service and just probably providing the same sort of business I try and provide when I'm teaching people martial arts. It's just like I would like to keep you coming back, but I'm not gonna act any different than I would act to anybody else to keep you coming back.
Yeah.
But I mean, how much is that a factor? Because like, there's another music store that I've gone to over the years, and like that's kind of why I stopped going to music stores. It's kind of a weird culture when I went in there for any reason. But you've been just like great to deal with. So I'm like, man, I'll give you my business anytime I can.
Right.
That's so like being a small business owner, I kind of empathize. I told somebody you were coming on, and that's an interesting person to have on.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I mean, how many people you know that own a music store?
Right.
Like, and then all the stuff that entails, and then you're an entrepreneur and you're a small business owner. It's an interesting dynamic.
Right. I know what you're saying, and we're a father-son business. And
yeah, I was going to ask about that. I think your dad is that your dad?
Yeah.
Okay, so well, you said father-son. But when I went and got you ordered that stool, kind of the folding across the hall, Studio B, and he was there when I went in to get that, I believe. So.
Right. And, business in general, I think, has changed a lot over the years, and but the music business or music instrument business has always been notorious about having places that aren't real welcoming.
Martial arts can be the same way. Okay. That's why I'm like likening, a lot of similarities here.
Right, and I had to dislearn a lot of bad habits too, in regards to, when people come in, we want anybody to come in and browse at any time.
For sure.
You don't have to buy something to come in and look around, because, some of my products are expensive, and,
sure.
People are not going to spend that kind of money every time they walk in the door. But there's people that like to come in and just see what's out there, and I've had to explain to Dad lots of times, they might not buy the instrument themselves, but they might be talking to somebody the next day or the next week about instruments, and they say, hey, well, I was in Valley Piano, and I saw this guitar like you're talking about.
Word of mouth.
Right, exactly. So, but, back 20 years ago, this is our 44th year.
Wow.
So, yeah. And, 10, 20, 30 years ago, a lot of the owners were, when you came in the door, if you weren't going to spend money, they didn't really want to spend time with you, or they didn't want you hanging around. And that's not realistic. I like a place that community,
Exactly.
There's tons of great musicians in the area, and I like a place that we're not really big enough where people can just kind of come hang out, unfortunately. Maybe one day we might be able to do something along those lines, but if somebody just wants to come in and buy a couple of guitar picks and look around, that's fine. That's fine. And I've had, local performers who would be in there just kind of doing that, and other people would come in and see them there, and it's kind of, it's somebody that they go to see and play shows, and so it's kind of cool for them to kind of run into somebody who's actually out there doing it, shopping at the same place they are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's That's interesting, and it is nice to come in and look around. And like when I come in, like you've ordered some stuff for me. You ordered that stool, and it's like you kind of my go-to guy now for whatever I'm going to buy, and I'm way more apt to just say, "Hey, can you order that?" And throw it. It doesn't. It's not even about the price for me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
yeah, I can get it on Amazon, and I do. Like on some things, I'm going to talk to you. Hey, do you have this? And I might want it a little quicker than it might be. I've messaged you on a Sunday about cables and stuff before. So some of those weird little TS to TRS obscure cables, I've asked it, but like this recorder and stuff, I'm like, hey. And I think that people don't realize that. And that's the big thing I noticed is it's more like, oh, you bought your guitar online, and it's like, and we'll be bringing it in to get it serviced or worked on, or because I'm the kind of guy, man, I'm busy and I am super apt to bring all my stuff in to get it worked on. And that, like, I have farmed all of that out to friends, and my buddy Dylan, he's been on the podcast, a great musician and drummer, and he kind of works my guitars over now. Just because, and it would even be guitars I bought at such and such music store at oftentimes, and it just was like a disinterest in me being there as a consumer because my business wasn't 100% there.
Right, which is ridiculous because you're always going to have guys who are enthusiasts towards a particular brand. You're going to have your Gibson guys, or you're going to have your Fender guys, and
which I got a lot of questions about brands today. Which just to see what sort of insight you have. I know we said we're going to mention Gibson, but
right.
Go ahead.
And their business policies aren't really set up. Those two in particular, their business policies are really not set up to sell their product in small town America. But it's just like you have your Chevy and your Ford guys and your Nike and your Reebok people or Adidas, whatever. There's going to be certain people that they just really like that particular brand. And, I don't sell Fender new products, but if somebody brings one in that needs to be serviced, it'd be ridiculous for me to be like,
you didn't get that here.
Yeah. I'm not going to deal with you. You didn't buy that here.
Well, that's just like a general attitude of gratitude in my mind of like, hey, thanks for the business. Yeah. And if I didn't feel like you were that way, I probably wouldn't come in or ask you to come on the podcast or whatever, So that's why, like I said, I'm willing to pay anybody that just like is like a customer service person. Is like that's one of my number one things. I'm like, if we mess something up, like you're getting something for free, and I'm not saying like, but it's like it's like, hey, well, we got this T-shirt right here.
Yeah,
here you go.
Right.
It's $5 T-shirt, tank top or with sticker or whatever. It's like we try and go that extra mile anytime we forgot to order your this or. Man, we deal with so many people. So many people are signing up, and schedule is packed, and personal training, and it gets really hectic at times. We might have a month where we sign up 20 plus people,
right? And
we had 250 members that we already deal with,
right?
So one of those 250 might take a back seat while we're dealing with the new 20 and getting them orientated, and then a couple of the new 20 may fall through the cracks because we're dealing with the larger group. But that's just like when that sort of stuff happens, we try and do everything we can to ensure that those people are still happy, you know. And I think that because like you said, you have some expensive products, and anytime I'm going to buy something expensive, I'm gonna go. It might be just at your store, and then I'm gonna go back and like that software you told me about. I'm gonna go do my research. I'm gonna come back and look at it again. And we're talking maybe a $600, $2,000 investment, depending. I don't know what the most upper end thing you stock is, but I know what audio equipment can run, and I know I've paid $600 for a guitar easy before.
Oh yeah.
So it's an investment. That's how I look at it. Just like martial arts people are investing in information or whatever.
Right. And musical instruments aren't they need maintenance. They're, in a way, they're kind of like vehicles. You have to maintain them on a regular basis to keep them in good working order. And it would be different if it was just a product that was like a roll of paper towels where, every one on the shelf is going to be exactly the same. And maybe some paper towel manufacturer wants to argue with me because some might be 2-ply and others you'll be able to tear the sheet instead of a whole sheet, half a sheet. And, there's some differences, and the product's not always the same, but it's with musical instruments, especially ones that are made out of wood, like guitars and pianos. Every tree is different, so every instrument is different. And even when you read the specs online about a particular guitar, and many guitar players will tell you this, and you probably already know, you can have two identical models at least have the same specs, but they just play and sound different. And a lot of that can be it was made out of a different tree, different wood. Different,
like I see that a lot of times differences on the neck.
Yeah.
It's mahogany, rosewood, or...
Mm-hmm. Different feel, different. They're just you got to take them on a case-by-case basis. And a lot of the manufacturers, which one we'll get into later on, which you've said we wanted to talk about, let's just throw it out there, Gibson guitars.
Rest in peace.
The owner right now is really, this is spring 2018. Everything changes. So if somebody watches this a year from now, it could be a completely different story. But the owner is really throwing dealers under the bus right now, saying that the reason why Gibson guitars are failing is because the dealers are not embracing online sales. And in the same interview prior to that, he's talking about how every guitar is different, and it fits you different, and you got to put your hands on it and experience it. And it's just a conflict of interest. Not interest, but it's conflict in what he's saying, because he's talking about the individuality of the instrument, but at the same time he's talking about dealers not really offering his product online, where you can't do that, where you have to basically order something and rely on somebody pulling it off a shelf.
I'm so leery about making that kind of investment online with like several hundred. I don't know. I'm trying to think if I have ever bought a guitar. I did, and I have a couple of times. I bought I bought a B stock guitar one time. Found a killer deal on it, but I wasn't happy with it when I got it either. You know, and I thought it was going to be super quality, and it had a couple little issues with it that I didn't enjoy. Like the little where the battery goes in. It was talking me like the two jumbos I have out here, which are not B stocks. It's like it didn't fit the hole. You could like move it like that, and that was the main thing. And then it had a rattle that I couldn't get to go away. And then if I took that into that store I was talking about, and they're like, "You're such a dumbass." I mean, I'm just like, come on, guys, this is like a couple $100. This is a very expensive guitar new. I think I got a killer deal on it. And they're like, pretty much like, don't come back here with that.
Yeah.
And I get that, but it's like, that was one of the only guitars I ever bought online, and we'll probably not do it again just because of that. What all brands do you deal in?
Well, on the piano side and because of our name, Valley Piano, that is our main emphasis. Because in the past there was at least 2 other guitar stores here in town. We've always carried guitars, but I tried to fit in and cover the bases that they did not.
For sure.
A lot of local people will remember Sound Investments.
I remember I bought my first bass from there in 8th grade.
Yeah, and I think one of their major brands was Fender, and I think at one time they maybe even carried some Epiphone and Alvarez guitars possibly. I don't remember exactly, but whatever brands they carried and whatever brands Olson's carried, we tried to just offer a third option. Music instrument people can be, lots of times, a lot of them will like something that's off the beaten path. Sure. One of the you asked what brands. One of the brands I carry is Orange amplifiers.
Okay, yeah. I want to get an Orange amp. So when I do that, yeah, I'm gonna need you to be thinking about me, because I don't know a whole lot about them. I just know that the next time I buy an amp, it's gonna be an Orange, and I know that you carry them. Yeah,
and up until really the past 5 to 10 years, they have not had a real huge presence here in the U.S. They've always kind of been an underground boutique brand. I mean, if you watch old Black Sabbath videos or Heart, from the late 60s, early 70s, you'll see Orange amps on stage. They've been around as long as Marshall has. But they just, for whatever reason, here in the U.S., about 5 or 10 years ago, opened up an office, or at least that's when I became aware of them, in Atlanta. And,
oh, nice. That's not too far away.
Right. And there's, these days you see tons of artists videos, concert footage with Orange on stage.
They're a pretty amp. I mean, I like the way it's just a simple but way they do the colors of their amp make them, I know they have a spectrum of color, but usually like the white and the oranges. And
right.
It's just appealing.
Yeah. I've been carrying them probably for 5 to 7 years now. And prior to that, for about a year or two, the rep that I was dealing with kept saying, man, these amps are doing great in other markets. You really need to carry them. I'm like, well, they only come in orange. I mean, if they came in red, for my market, because of cyclones, because of Razorbacks, sure. This is SEC country. So when people see orange, lots of times they think Tennessee.
Texas,
right. Prior to the SEC, Texas was a big rivalry. And so I was like, if they came in other colors, maybe. But it's turned out that's the thing about them that a lot of people really like.
Yeah, that's what, I mean, obviously I like the way, I don't know if he got it here in town, but anytime I see someone get an Orange, I assume that they might have got it from you, since you're probably the primary dealer in town. But a friend of mine, Dr. Jason Warnick from the university, he got an Orange for his birthday at some point recently, and I was like, hey man, what do you think about that? Mm-hmm. So I've had my eye on the brand for over a year, and after I get the studio a little more further evolved, I've got a music room I've been putting together over here since we moved in, and it's kind of taken a back seat to this, but it'll be the next labor of love until Cora turns one of these rooms into a nursery.
There you go.
Yeah.
That'll be a whole nother level.
We got a ways to go. She's got more fights she wants to have. She just fought and won last weekend. I think I saw you comment.
I did. That was awesome.
The support. It was crazy. She got fouled during the fight with this thing called an illegal up kick. Okay. I don't know if you watch MMA very much, but
casual fan.
So let's say you're on your back and I'm in between your legs. They call that the guard.
Right. I'm familiar.
And I'm on my knees.
Okay.
This girl kicked with the bottom of her foot, like in the face, like right in the jaw, and like snapped her head back like whiplash style. It's totally illegal. Last night we were watching a fight, and I'm sure you maybe heard of the fighter Anderson Silva.
Oh yeah.
And we were watching him. He did that to a guy named Yushin Okami, also another UFC fighter.
Was this an older fight?
Yeah, it was called, I think, Rumble on the Rock. It was somewhere in between Pride and UFC.
Okay.
Anderson Silva fought in a couple other promotions outside of those two. And him and Yushin Okami fought again at UFC 134 because Anderson Silva did that and got DQ'd. So I was like, when I saw that happen, I was like, they need to, at the very minimum, take a point or a DQ, because I was worried. Her jaw was jacked up for a few days. It feels better now. But man, imagine your wife fighting, dude.
I can't.
I know, man. It is so I literally oh man, I don't know. See, she's undefeated in kickboxing. She's competed in jiu-jitsu And she had her first MMA fight, big promotion, and because of her experience, she's purple belt in jiu-jitsu, brown belt in judo, and undefeated in kickboxing, 2-time amateur kickboxing world champion. The first girl she fought had like 8 MMA fights, and she lost a decision. All this girl did
Your wife lost?
Yeah,
Okay.
and this is her last fight. All the girl did is hold her on the fence the whole time. First fight of the night on this big promotion. It's called Legacy.
Okay.
It's kind of the 3 big promotions in the U.S. now are Legacy, Bellator, and the UFC.
Okay. Yeah.
And so she got, like, her MMA debut was on Legacy, but she fought this girl that had a lot of experience, and they just did what they needed to do to not grapple, not take to the canvas, and to not get hit. Held her on the fence. No takedown attempts, no takedowns. Every time Corey starts striking, just hug, push on the fence. And so she's, like, coming off a loss. So I'm just like, oh man, I want you to win so bad.
Going into this fight last week.
Yeah. So like, I'm like, hoping for the best, and she's a phenom. She is so good. But I'm like, she can't lose 2 in a row. She's gonna take that very hard. And so like, I was trying not to show her any of this. I kind of just told her about it yesterday. I was like, man, I was sweating it, and she didn't know, but. So it's like I really wanted her to win. And then it's like anytime she competes, man, my heart rate just
I can imagine.
jacks.
Yeah.
Even in jiu-jitsu, which is no striking, right? So so that's pretty much, these takedowns. And but man, she got out there and it was just the up kick happened, and I was already just, amped up and heart rate and stuff. And after the fight, my face was just so red for like an hour. I felt like I've been in the fight myself, because I fought myself, and it's kind of like have you ever been in a car wreck or like?
Fortunately, not many.
Good. Or like I felt the same way the first, and I don't really hunt anymore, but the first time I killed a deer.
Okay.
Like this like crazy rush of adrenaline.
Okay.
Like I felt that way the first time I shot at a deer. It's just this excitement, man. You've been thinking about it and building it up, and so you get like this dump of adrenaline. My second first MMA fight, I had that, and I thought I'd been in a car crash. But people experience this dump of adrenaline after being in a car crash.
Okay.
So, but I felt like I'd been in the fight after Cora fought. I had a surge of adrenaline, or blood pressure or something. It was.
Now, when I think about being in a car crash, I think about being sore. You're not talking about being sore, are you?
No,
so much adrenaline. Just
that too. So, like, for example, my MMA fight, I took no damage, delivered all the damage, but just like getting your heart rate up and the adrenaline, just being in there, the act of fighting, you might hold your breath a little bit. And I remember between rounds, I tell people a story. I went to sit down and I was like, I can't go back out there, man. Oh, I'm dying. And I'd won the round. Like, I would finish the round and mount just hitting the guy, and like a lot of people thought it should have been stopped in the first round, and they didn't stop it. And I'm just sit down. I'm like, I can't breathe. Oh my God. And then the bell rings. I just go out there and I win and get to choke. But afterwards I was just like, oh man. Oh my, just everything that was a muscle was like cramping. It's partially probably from holding my breath a little bit. It was like my first MMA fight. I had a kickboxing fight, but I finished it in like 30-something seconds, so I didn't have a chance to get all jacked up, right. I guess. I don't know. But I didn't feel that in the first fight, and that's something that, I've cornered over 100 fights, and that's something that a lot of fighters go through their first several fights. They get several fights in before you don't have those physiological effects, and then it's all just like you're saying, you're sore because you took a beating, like because you damaged from the car crash or whatever. But like right after people have a car accident, even if it's minor, you're kind of that's that drop of a surge of adrenaline.
Okay, I get that a lot in certain situations. Confrontational situation. Anything that what I would view as a confrontational, I kind of start shaking a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's
and I'm sure it's adrenaline.
Yeah, that's I go through the same thing, and I think that like a big part of like the martial arts training is managing that. It's like learning to deal with that as like a person, because I told somebody, like, so for example, this last year, I was teaching a class at my coach's gym in Bentonville. So I taught my class. I usually get up at 4:30 in the morning.
I know.
So
I see.
so I got up and I taught that morning class and done some stuff and taught a noon class. I think I did a private lesson that day. And then I'm like, I'll go home, and I think I ate lunch and hopped in the car and drove to Bentonville, and there's this crazy traffic, and usually takes me right at 2 hours, 15 minutes, give or take, maybe with a stop a little more. But it took me like over 3 hours. And I didn't have a water in the car with me, so I didn't drink anything that 3 hours. So I got there, because I was a little late, I got there right on time, taught the class, and, sweating, didn't drink any water, and got out there and started rolling with, like, my, black belts, high ranks, but I didn't roll with any lower level people. It's just all my coaches and stuff. And by about round 5, it was pure dehydration, and was going with one of my buddies and coaches, Mike. He's in my wedding. I mean, he's like one of my best friends. And he sweat me, and like, so basically I was on top, tipped me over, and then he's on top. Got past my guard, my legs, and I was just like, dude, I'm done. Like, I was almost having a panic attack. I don't think I've ever really had a full-blown panic attack, but anytime I had, it's because of just being exhausted. And it's like what you're saying with this, like, feeling of confrontational based adrenaline. I get a taste of that almost every day.
Oh, I can imagine.
But it's not emotional typically, but when you start, like, I can't breathe. Like, so, and then, you're fighting somebody, and you don't want them to think that you or like a quitter or whatever, but you just got to divorce yourself of the ego and be like, I was like, dude, I'm tapping to exhaustion. I'm dehydrated. I need to go suck down 2 bottles of water and rest. I just, like, my 5th round, I've messed up here. Let me go get hydrated. And I came back out and rolled a couple more rounds, but it's like, that's, I just got promoted black belt yesterday in jiu-jitsu.
I saw that, and I was going to congratulate you.
Well, thank you, man. It's 11 years and 4 months of training.
That's amazing.
And that was like maybe 8 months ago. Like, that's probably like September, October that like I'm telling you this incident happened. So it's like,
oh, okay, yeah.
And I train every day. Like, there's not really any getting out of shape. There's staying about the same shape, or I could get in better shape if I want. It's like doing it day in, day out, teaching classes, training with my students. I stay in pretty good shape. My weight stays the same pretty much no matter what. But it's so if I'm still experiencing that, it's not because I suck at what I do. It's part of being human, and being a human that's getting older as I do this, and has been doing it for 11 years, 4 months, and taking the abuse of, dozens and dozens of jiu-jitsu competitions and fights, and all the practices is where the fights are won. You grind it out and put your body through heck and try and recover and try and not tap when you get tired like that. Because, like, I'm at a point where it's just like, dude, I got to drive this many hours home after we go eat and stay awake for that and get home past midnight and get up and do this again tomorrow. And I got to teach classes tomorrow, and I need to be there for those people. It's like, it's easy for me to just say, yeah, no, dude.
Right. There's always
there's a bigger picture here, but like 5 years ago, I just would have had the panic attack. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I cut it off a little before that happened or whatever. But it is interesting how that's pretty much what everybody's trying to overcome, is just that feel. I always thought I could defend myself until I started training martial arts. Right. And then I was like, oh man, what a rude awakening. I would have died. I would have died just feeling the, like, the adrenaline before the confrontation, then getting in it. Who knows? It's like, if I train and it still affects me, on any level, it's like, imagine the people that don't train, right, or don't exercise. Or then you have like weightlifters and stuff that will be just trying to bodybuild, and they might be smoking cigarettes and drinking whiskey every day. Because they don't have to. They're not about that cardio life. They're not out running, or they're not doing ultra marathons or marathons. So anyway, it's an interesting thing to try and master what your body does.
Oh, I can imagine. I've always been a casual fan of MMA, but I've always had this attitude that, if I put my mind to something and tried it, I could do it. About almost anything, but not MMA.
Yeah.
I watched that and I'm like, there is absolutely no way, no matter how hard I worked or tried, I could do that.
Do you know who Joey Diaz is? He's a comedian.
Yeah, on the Rogan.
He comes on Rogan a lot. He has his own podcast called The Church of What's Happening Now.
Okay.
And he's a funny comedian, but he trains jiu-jitsu now.
Wow.
And at one point, he was up like 350 pounds. Maybe he said he got up to 400 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
But he has lost a ton of weight. He said he's wearing an A5 gi, which means I wear an A3.
Okay.
He's lost all this weight, but he's talking about being able to roll and stuff. It's like there's a lot of people that do jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu's for everyone. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
It's for a lot of people, though. And while you're totally spot on, and it would depend on where you went, but learning MMA would be difficult. My first guest who has controversial Star Wars views.
They're not controversial.
They are. I don't agree with them either. Jesse. He actually just went on a super awesome trip, and they went to like 9 national parks in 8 days or maybe even like fewer days than that.
Right.
3,400 miles. So he's going to come back on and talk about all that. But yeah, he shows up. He's like, let me tell you 8 things I hate about The Last Jedi. I was like, dude. Whoa.
Right. But, and I know me and you in the store had a conversation, and I might have used the word disagree. It's not that I disagree with what he was saying. I mean, because in the end, we're talking about a movie.
I know, right.
And everybody's opinion is valid.
Exactly.
But there are a lot of people that feel the exact same way he does.
I know. And, we talked about on the podcast why it's like almost, I think, a generational thing for me, but you're probably closer to the same generation as he is. So it's interesting to see the spread of fans and their viewpoints.
Right.
Because I'm of the generation that they remastered the original trilogy when I was like becoming a teenager.
Right.
Like, probably 12 years old. Oh, but for me, I was like, yes.
Me too.
I mean, I was pumped about it. I got to go see them in theaters. And then even better, episode 1, 2, and 3 comes out throughout my teenage years. Get to see all those in theaters. So I've got to see, all the Star Wars in theaters. And
yeah, I mean, I'm day one-ish.
Yeah.
That's, I was in 4th grade when the original came out.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you get to see? That's old.
No,
definitely old enough to remember.
Yeah, the first one I actually got to see in the theaters was Return of the Jedi. So I did not get to see.
So 81, 83?
Return of the Jedi is 84.
84, okay, yeah.
Star Wars
81.
77, Empire 81. And I read the book or books for both movies. And back then they had these books with records, and the record actually had the dialogue from the movie and all the sound effects.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
do you still have that record? I bet it's worth a lot of money if you do.
I don't think I do. I don't think I do.
I didn't, dude. I had so many Star Wars action figures from growing up, and I don't even know where they're at. Actually, I gave a lot of my action figures to Jesse. That was on the first podcast, because he has an action figure collection like in his office. He's a professor at U of O.
Yeah.
So I was just like, man, these have already brought me joy. They'll bring you joy. They can continue to bring joy.
Right.
So,
but I'm wondering if like you're talking about the special editions, and a lot of the day one people, kind of at the special edition, they start their love-hate relationship with George Lucas.
How dare you put Hayden Christensen in that lineup at the end of Return of the Jedi?
Greedo shooting first or hand shooting first. I don't even remember who.
Exactly, right.
You know, that and apparently Vader yells no at some point that he didn't do in the originals. And but as a creator, I saw what George was doing. And I think creators, you know, we never feel like our stuff is perfect.
It sucks.
Yeah, and it's hard. You know, there comes a time where you just got to let it out. You got to let it go. And I can understand him being at a point in 77, then 20 years later having all this technology available to him, and he says, in my head, this is how I saw it. I couldn't do it that way in 77.
That's a great take on it. I never really thought about it that way.
Right. Now in 97, I can do it. But one thing that I have personally experienced is that when you put a piece of art or artwork out there into the world and people become familiar with that, and you go back and you try to reinterpret that or change it, there is so much backlash and so much. People want whatever they're familiar with, and they are very unforgiving if you change that work. And that's what happened. I think that's when we kind of started getting these two divisions in the Star Wars fandom.
I get that. You know, I'll tell you, like, so my wife loves that new Jumanji movie. And I will not watch it. Not. I feel like I'm like betraying my grandmother's memory by watching it or something. Like I watched it with the very first one with her, and I'm like, oh, this is such a great movie, and I just cannot envision The Rock.
Right. Well, and bringing your grandmother up, that's an important thing because it's a landmark in your life and your memory.
Exactly.
And I get that.
You know, and I know not everybody is this way, and but I do know a lot of people that are, and my wife is just like, it kind of wears her out, but like, she doesn't attach memories to things like movies, and I do. I'm like, I saw that with so and so on this day, and it was such a great time, and like I don't know, those experiences are meaningful to me.
Right.
But she's just like, for example, one time neither one of us had never seen Good Morning Vietnam.
Okay.
It was another Robin Williams movie.
Right.
And so we watched it on Netflix. It was streaming on Netflix, and like a year later, I'm like, hey, you want to watch Good Morning Vietnam again? And she's like, we've never watched that. And I was like, no, we haven't. She's like, you must have watched that with someone else.
Right.
And I was just like,
right.
The reason I brought it up is because they're right here in the do you want to watch it again on this account that we have together, that we have always had together. You know, and she's just like, oh, and this did it again. There's this Amazon show, second season of Sneaky Pete.
Okay.
Just came out. We watched the first season. She has like no recollection of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
She just doesn't. It's like some people just don't store things that aren't important to them, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
I've got shows like that I call them my veg shows. I like to just veg out and I want a program that I don't have to remember anything about. It just passes the time.
Yeah. I do that. And like I like rewatching shows. Like I rewatch parts of Game of Thrones or rewatch Breaking Bad, and it just kind of like, you know, I might be in here writing lectures or something, and it's just kind of going in the background. But not anymore. I just do that podcast.
Right.
You know, or documentaries. But I do it with shows too, but it's always shows I've seen. You watch any HBO shows?
Game of Thrones and
Westworld.
Tonight. Silicon Valley's coming on.
Oh, actually, you know, I've been told I should watch that, but I haven't ever got into it.
It's a crazy show. I mean, it's an acquired taste, I guess. But when it comes to TV, my wife watches a ton of it, and I will sit there on the couch and watch what she watches, and but I don't have a whole lot of stuff just a few things that I follow regularly.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way. I usually have about half a dozen shows that maybe, but some of them are like going out and not like. So like I really like Better Call Saul. I don't know if you've watched that. It's
I have
a
not.
spinoff of Breaking Bad, a prequel spinoff.
Yeah, she was into Breaking Bad, and she watched all those, so I'm familiar with that just because she watched it.
It's really good. I enjoy it. The 4th season's coming out soon, but Man in the High Castle, that's one that their 3rd season's coming out. It's basically a post World War II universe in which Nazi Germany and Japan won the war.
Oh, wow.
And they divided the United States, the Rocky Mountains. You have the Pacific Japanese states and the American Nazi Reich.
Okay.
And it's just crazy. It's crazy that Japan is, and that there's a border, you know.
Right.
But
which
they're kind of cooperative.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's a fascinating concept the way they put it together. And there's this guy named Obergruppenführer Smith, and Obergruppenführer is like a position that actually existed in the SS.
Oh, okay.
And he runs the American Nazi Reich, and it's Rufus Sewell. I don't know if you know who that is. He plays the antagonist bad guy in that movie A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger.
Right.
Like, so he's that guy. That's
Okay.
Rufus Sewell. He's been in a bunch of movies. He's in one of the Zorro movies with Antonio Banderas. I like him as an actor. And he did good in that movie. But he's also in that movie Tristan and Isolde with James Franco. So, shout out to Rufus Sewell.
Rufus.
Yeah, what a cool name. I've had pets named Rufus before.
Isn't there a Rufus and Marshall?
Duke
MMA?
Rufus. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was on, I was just talking to somebody yesterday. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast once, and they were watching all these obscure Muay Thai fights. He's like, pull up, Boonlock Rainbow. And like these people, they have like these funny fight names they come up with. These Thais do, and but they watch all these obscure fights and people like breaking their backs in Thailand, getting thrown out of the ring, and why they make the rules are real different in kickboxing in the United States. You can enter Muay Thai division rules somewhere, but they're real different than like you go to Thailand. It's like there are no other rules. You're fighting Thai rules. A lot of times, like we're watching some traditional Thai fights yesterday where their thumbs were out. They had more just like a wrap on.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow.
Yeah.
Sounds brutal.
Yeah. So it is. I can only imagine. I've never been to Thailand. Probably won't go. But because man, anymore, thanks to globalization and new media and as much information and stuff, it's like the rule sets of the promotions is a big reason why kickboxing is a little different in the United States and this cultural tradition.
Mm-hmm.
But you could I still have all the access in the world to that information, you know, outside of like just getting it directly from the guy, which there's value to that. But there's so many guys in the United States now that have already done that and come back and are training people.
Okay.
And it's like there's several, like I've got to work with a guy you ever watch Vanderlei Silva back in the day?
The name sounds familiar.
The Axe Murderer. He's a crazy dude. He came over
Is
from
he
Pride.
Brazilian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. He's from an academy called Shootbox.
Okay.
And I got trained with one of the Shootbox guys from Brazil who moved here and opened a school in Long Beach and married a lady whose parents live in Northwest Arkansas. So he did a seminar at my coach's gym over like the day before Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Worlds one year in California and he's like, man, you're ever in town? Hit me up. And I went and trained there while I was in town.
Awesome.
So, you know, just kind of that's the access to the information you have. And like yesterday, I was scouting out this instructional series, like $140, but I was like, probably about to buy that just because it's a really specialized body of information from one of those guys that learned from a guy that is credited with bringing Muay Thai to America.
Right.
Chai is the guy's name that's credited to bringing a lot of the techniques over first, and he taught Dan Inosanto, who was a Bruce Lee student, and Dan Inosanto taught this guy, Greg Nelson. So Greg Nelson's had Sean Shirk. He actually coached Brock Lesnar.
Okay.
Can't choose your students. Can't choose your customers in the music business, I guess, too.
No.
Well, I mean, yeah, some places can, I suppose.
You know, it's funny you say that, too, because I would say 99.6% of my customers is a pleasure to deal with.
You talk about, which I know, man, like it could be anything from road rage to somebody just like bumping into you funny, and being like, we were out having dinner with some friends, just all the group of guys, me and several guys from high school, and somebody kind of got confrontational with one of the people at our table, and it was just like, oh. Yeah, but do you ever have any awkward situation? I mean, I do. People come in and want to beat my ass because I'm like, I mean, literally, that people, these street fighters or ego heads. I mean, it happens.
Yeah,
and I just had it happen recently, and I had to lay the smack down, and I hate having to do that, man. And the older I get, I hate it more. That's why I cut it off kind of early and was like, you need to get out of here. But it's the same way as what you're saying, and I wonder. Just because I'm in the fight business, I know other people do the confrontation too. But what's some issues you've had in customer end of things?
Well, we have a showroom where our products, we allow testing of our products. And basically what that means is that you're allowed to come in and pick up a guitar or sit down at a piano. Most of the time, we're hoping that it's for people who's seriously thinking about purchasing that instrument. But you've got to test it out. You need to see how it feels. You need to know how it sounds. And usually, most people can determine that they should be able to determine that within 5 to 10 minutes. They shouldn't have to sit there and perform a 2-hour concert to know whether that instrument
bring their set list with them.
Right, exactly. Works for what they do and what they don't do.
Yeah, there's definitely a point of reason there.
Right. Now, occasionally, and it tends to be younger customers, maybe high school kids or tech students.
18 to 25-year-olds, my worst market.
Yeah. They'll come in and they'll pick up an instrument and they'll start testing it. And, they'll ask me, can I try this out? I'm like, yes, you can test it. And I always emphasize the word test. And they'll start playing, and about 10 to 15 minutes in, you can tell when they start going through every riff that they know. And at that point, it's not, you can tell it's almost getting to a point of, they're getting lost in the instrument, which happens. I mean, that's one of the great things about playing an instrument. You can sit down, pick it up, and start playing, and you can just go to another place. And I get that, I understand that, but unfortunately, we can't let you do that in the store.
Yeah.
Because if everybody came in and did that, then everybody would just be sitting around playing instruments until we closed and had to run them out of there.
Well, and then it kind of makes the new instrument not so new.
Well, right. That's another thing. It's, zippers, buttons, banging it on the stand when you're
Belt
picking
buckles.
it up and taking it off.
Yeah.
So there's been a few times when I approached somebody and said, okay, what do you think about the instrument? You've had a while to play it, and they'll Guitar Center will let me play it for as long as I want, And I'm like, well, their business model is a little bit different than ours. We're a full service business. They're a self-service business. And I hear a lot of complaints from people that say they don't like to go into Guitar Center because when you walk in there, it's just a bunch of racket everywhere. And, it's just a completely different business model. So occasionally I'll have people kind of get upset and offended when I cut them off.
Well, yeah. I mean, and how big a square foot is a typical Guitar Center?
Right.
I can get that, man. I've grown out of my location 3 times. Mm-hmm. And you only have so much square foot. And like you said, I mean, how many pianos do you have in your business right now?
The traditional acoustic pianos, we probably have 10.
That takes up a lot of space.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I figured it would be less than that, but I mean, I'm sure you probably have some in the back, and I'm sure you have a storage area and stuff. But man, you do have a lot of inventory.
Yeah.
And all, like your songbooks, your guitars, your amps, your cables, your recording stuff. Then the fact that you carry pianos and not just your acoustics, but you get your keyboards and digital pianos,
Right.
stuff like that, and boxes, and
Yeah.
then you want like I was like, hey, is this stool for sale? You're like, no, I need that because the people do the stuff on it.
Yeah.
But man, I can get that, and that makes all the sense in the world. And like, I mean, imagine you deal with 3 customers while they're playing the guitar and they're cranking it up on that orange amp or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get it.
And there's been times also, when I'm in there, and me and Dad's different. He's very much old school. I'm very much new school. And he doesn't, if you go in there and he's in there, and he's a piano guy more so than I am too. I'm more of a guitar guy. So difference in personalities, and there'll be times I'll be doing paperwork and somebody comes in, and I'll let them sit there for 45 minutes and just I can tell for several reasons. Lots of times I'm kind of checking them out, saying, that dude's playing some cool stuff.
Yeah, I agree. You can tell the type of customer you're dealing, like you said, 99.6%
Right.
of the time.
Right. I'll let them play. I'll kind of check out what they're doing just for my benefit, because I'm learning something just listening and watching them. And also, I don't mind, they'll adjust settings on the amp and get a different tone or sound that I might not be familiar with. So, and lots of times by letting them sit there and test and play on an instrument for 45 minutes, I'm learning a lot just as much as they are. And I've got paperwork I'm working on, so they're fine on their own. I'm fine doing my thing. And
You're not a rush of customers.
Right. But then if this person's over here and I have a piano customer that comes in, I can't have somebody over there with, doing all these metal runs and power chords to where that the piano customer can't hear what the instrument that they're testing out. So it's very rare, but every now and then I have to, shut somebody down and say, okay, well, that's enough. You got an idea what it can do, and if you want it,
Yeah. Which is perfectly reasonable. I mean, that's like, I mean, like when I go in a music store, I'm just like, wow, there's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of inventory in here,
Mm-hmm.
like, and I want to be totally respectful. That's not my stuff. And I'm sure not everybody feels that way.
Most do, some don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some go back to it. I had this kid last semester from Tech. 4 guys come in, and when you get a group of people like that in too, sometimes maybe 2 of the 4 are actually there for the instruments, and the other 2 are just hanging with their buddies. But I had this guy kind of wander off towards the back where we've got a grand piano, and he had a spit cup with him. He brought it in, and so I was watching him, and he set the spit cup on the grand piano to sit down and start playing on some keys. And I was just blown away by the lack of respect. Not only the fact that that's a $10,000 piano, but didn't think a thing in the world about setting a spit cup on it. Now, I have 2 stepsons, and both of them dip. And they have their spit bottles and their spit cups. So I'm used to being around that. But, I mean, the confrontational side of me just kind of, what do you think you're doing? And he turned around and looked at me. He's like, man, this dude's about to go berserk in here. And,
Dude, I'm I used to get real upset about people walking on my mats with shoes, and like, it happens. People don't understand. Like, I used to get and then people in the schools who get upset about it because they don't want people doing it, and I'm just kind of like, hey man, it happened,
Yeah.
Like, but there's several things like that like the most recent confrontation I had, it's like, hey, we talked to you about this a couple of times, it's just not a fight. We're here getting better, and if you want to try and hurt my brain, I will hurt your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of like, it just goes to the point so far. It's like, luckily I have a lot of people out there that deal with things before. But if I'm out there on the floor, I got to deal with them too. But then it's a liability for my people of like, well, because there was a period of time where we went almost 3 years without a concussion. I mean, it's like we have people that compete in combat sports.
Right.
Accidents happen.
Right.
Like nobody wants to knock anybody out. I don't want anybody to knock anyone out. There's some people in the MMA now that don't even spar, or they might spar 2 weeks. If that you get to a certain level, and it's just like it defeats the purpose of what you're doing. You know, it's like for you saying like I can't see doing that, because for your purpose, like your purpose to get into martial arts would be like some self-defense, get in shape, you know, like experience the health benefits of getting in better physical shape and having more confidence that you could defend yourself, and that you look and feel a little better too, and that helps. But not everybody's in it for those reasons either. And people come in with these preconceived notions like, I'm going to walk in here and tap you, and then this will be my gym. You know, I mean, I've had a couple of people that were of that mindset, and I just kind of ask them, I'm like, is this what's going on? Like I used to be a lot more indulgent about it 5 years ago, and now I'm just like, I was over this 2 years ago. This is like a no tolerance policy of like, this is the way things are. It's a non-negotiable thing. And if it's the third time we had that conversation, we need to part ways.
Right. 3 times is plenty.
Yeah. And that's usually
plenty of a chance.
That's usually it. And I mean, it's an interesting dynamic, things to balance, but, in a big way, I mean, us being a membership based service, we deal with a lot of people. We're like in a way, I guess, both somewhat in the people business.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, you know, you're nice to me, so I'm going to do business with you. You know, like it's pretty much as simple as that.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't like that I apply this method to tipping as well. I'm like, oh no, you didn't do your job at all. I sat here forever. You didn't refill my glass. That's going to be a 20% or less tip.
Right.
And she's like, 20%? It should be, why is that a number? You know, she used to be a waitress though.
Okay.
Like when we first.
So she doesn't like if you go below that.
She thinks the 20% thing is BS, and that you shouldn't put it in anything, and that these waitresses deserve it, and our food was not late because of them or whatever. And I get that, and I try and keep that within reason as well. But sometimes you go and have a horrible experience, and then I might be like, no tip, you know, and she's like, we're tipping 30%.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm not trying to stiff anybody either, but it's a service thing.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I, you know, if the service is there, I'll go, but it's not about price. And I try to never make it about the money really, but it's like when people do a good job, I want to, you know, if it's a custom of monetarily showing your appreciation, that's fine.
Right.
I don't care. Like I said, I would pay you 180, even if I could order it on Amazon for 140, if that helps you out or whatever, you know, is, or not even check what the other price is. It doesn't, like I said, it kind of makes it irrelevant when you have somebody you want to do business with, or you trust doing business with. Because man, you never know. I've ordered things from Amazon, and you get it, and the fulfillment warehouse or distribution, whoever put that in the package and sent it to you, did the wrong size. Like one time we ordered a bunch of clipboards for the gym, and they were color coded clipboards. We're going to use them for real particular reasons, and we got them, and they were like this big. And that was an option, but clearly you could tell how, like, our receipt and everything, we ordered the big ones. Well, somebody just messed it up. Yeah. It's never going to happen if you order it for. I mean, it might happen, but then you'll just deal with it probably. Right.
I'll catch it before.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, right.
So and then you have a relationship with the distributor, so you can call your rep or whatever. I'm same way on like I said, we have times we forget to order things, or we order the wrong size, and hey, we call, hey, we're going to send that back, or we'll stock this, and can you send us another one, put it on a overnight, and it's just simple stuff like that. And I think is super.
Well, and I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors with online shopping and prices. When you sit down and you actually do the math on a lot of stuff, it's not more expensive to buy local.
It's such a small margin. And then, I totally agree. It's like by the time it's all said and done, it's probably going to be a few dollars.
Right.
If that.
Right now, well, and also the manufacturers will, it gets a little tricky because I think this might be, I think there's laws that they have to deal with, but a lot of manufacturers are very restrictive on pricing. They won't allow websites to undercut brick and mortar dealers on certain items. So, I can have, say, for instance, let's just use a digital keyboard, for example. I can have a digital keyboard marked $2,400 in my showroom. And, you can go online and look, and anybody who's an authorized dealer is not allowed to sell that for
$2,200.
Under $2,400. We've all got to have the same price. And what becomes the problem, and right now what the biggest issue is the sales tax issue. A lot of people will say, they'll come in and they'll see my $2,400 keyboard, and they'll see it online for $2,400, exact same price. And they say, will you sell me that for $2,400? And I'm like, yeah, that's the price on it. But when I go to collect the money, I have to collect sales tax. And on $2,400, you're probably talking a couple $100 sales tax.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm giving this person this keyboard, but I'm asking them for $2,700. And they're like, wait a minute. I've got to give you $2,700, but I can get it online for $2,400. And they think that they don't have to pay the sales tax on it. But there's a tax called a use tax.
Yeah, we have to do that at the business.
Right. Anybody who buys product online has to pay a use tax for that item. Now, the problem is, and I tell a lot of people that they're at the store, and I get these looks like you're either crazy or I never heard that before. And most of the time they have not heard that, but I mean, we're, April 15th is coming up, the income tax deadline. And when you go to pay your Arkansas sales tax, there's always a section that's asked about the use tax. And anybody who's bought anything online at that time is supposed to report the use tax, which is the exact same amount as the sales tax. So when it's created a loophole, because there's really no way the state can enforce that.
Yeah, I know. Especially on like these Amazon. So that's what people are doing. They want that Amazon Prime, and they want to not pay the use tax.
Right. And now Amazon's interesting. I'm not a big fan of Amazon, but they have started collecting Arkansas sales tax. I haven't really bought anything on there in a while.
I think I did notice I had to pay tax.
Yeah.
They
have voluntarily, because a lot of states are putting pressure on these companies, Amazon and eBay and anybody else that it's kind of created this loophole. And so Amazon's one of the few that's kind of stepped up and said, okay, we see there's a problem. We'll go ahead and collect the sales tax. And what they do is anytime you pay that, then they're supposed to send the money back to the state. The state gets 6%. The Polk County gets 1%, and the city of Russellville, I think, gets 1 or 2%. But the point being that money goes right back into the community. So when I sell something and I collect that $2,700, they're still paying the same amount, $2,400 for the keyboard. but they're also paying a sales tax because they use the streets to drive to my business. If they got in a car wreck,
That's a great way to explain it.
yeah, if they got into a car accident, then they used the police to come help them. The ambulance services, whatever.
The infrastructure.
Yeah, whatever that money. I mean, because, yeah, we live in America, the home of the free, but it's free because everybody pitches in a little bit to help pay for it. And the loophole has created where all this money is going out of the communities. When you buy stuff online, that money that pays for all our free stuff we enjoy is also, that money's disappearing. So, eventually what will happen is that the communities will start drying up. And people will have to migrate to large metropolitan areas. And it for the longest time, I know sometimes you talk about conspiracy theories on here.
I'm going to do a whole run of conspiracy shows.
I don't know. I'm half and half. Half of me believes it's unintentional, and it's just the law that people constantly reference is I don't know, maybe 30 years or more old. Back when you had to order stuff out of catalogs, JCPenney's or Sears or Montgomery Ward, whoever the company was.
JCPenney still has a big catalog business as far as I know.
Yeah.
They still have that counter at the one here in Russellville. I mean, I knew somebody that worked it 5 years ago or something.
Right. Before the internet, when people had to order stuff, they would go into the store and order it or whatever. But like Bass Pro Shops, for example, when they first started selling a catalog, you're like, oh, yeah, I can order all these fishing lures and not have to pay sales tax on them because they only had a store in Missouri and they were a mail order business. But things have changed. A lot of things have changed.
That is getting regulated right now. Somebody was telling me yesterday on Reddit how they shut down, like, let's say you had craft beer and you're in Missouri and I have craft beer and I'm in Arkansas and we're going to trade. I'm going to send you craft beer. You send me craft beer from my state, your state. They shut all that down. That was going on. Like they say there was a dozen situations like that. That hit Reddit at the same time as that YouTube policy on gun accessories and stuff. We did a short little run on that with Chris Hausnick. He came on and did an episode. And he was just on AETN talking about like gun control politics and stuff. So. Okay. Interesting.
Right. Now, I'm talking about collecting all this sales tax, internet sales tax and stuff like that, and I don't want people to misunderstand. I'm not, just pro tax. I would be just as happy if the state quit requiring businesses to collect sales tax. Just make the playing field level.
Well, yeah. What do you think about the not to get you may not have come here to talk any politics, and that typically has been coming up because of the political climate, I guess, right now. And that guy mentions a political scientist, so he's a PhD. But what do you think about the idea of like a universal tax? I know that one person that's been big time pushing that, and I don't really follow his policies or anything too much, but it's Arkansas native Mike Huckabee. He's been big on that platform for years,
right? And
that's the first person I heard say anything about it. And I think that he was pumping that he's running for he didn't even run for president the last 2 times. And now everybody might know about him because his daughter is Trump's press secretary.
Oh yeah, okay, right.
Yeah, Sarah Huckabee Sanders or something like that. So, yeah.
When I heard about it, I thought it was a good idea. I think what they were saying is that they would eliminate all income tax, all these taxes, and they would go to like just the IRS would actually be eliminated, and it would be a sales taxes would be paid on a nationwide sales tax. To me, it makes sense because our economy is I think it's about 71% based on consumer spending, which means that people have to spend money to make the system work. And everybody spends money, whether you're buying gas, whether you're buying car,
it's crazy how much money
food.
you spend.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get up.
Like the number of transactions and how, like, accounting for that.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, like, think about, I mean, just if you do or are a person that orders most of your products online, there are people like that.
Yeah.
Maybe all. Like
Right.
you get back to get your groceries online with Walmart and everything.
Pushing it hard.
Then it's like, imagine that tallying up in that loophole you're talking about for an entire year. It's like, you're not going to, like, every single little credit card transaction, let's say there were 300 of them. I mean, that might be a stretch, but I do know, I mean, it's like we rent movies on Amazon periodically or buy digital movies, or there's just a lot of online transactions that I do, just little bitty ones. Like I said, like if it's a little cable or something, I'm just going boom, and that might be a one transaction.
Yeah.
You know, like I got these mic stands or whatever, but I didn't get all three of them at the same time. You know, and then but there's just all these scattered out transactions. I don't want to have to account for that, man. I don't even ask for receipts when I get gas. You know, it's just too much.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a proponent of it. It's like, make people's lives convenient. One of the only things I've ever heard that I agree with that Donald Trump said was that a concealed carry permit should be like a driver's license.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I heard that too.
But because of states like New York, Washington, D.C., and California, it can't be. So they're so strict on their gun laws.
Okay, right. Yeah, and you know, we're sitting here talking about tax, and you've got a certain element of the population. Anytime they hear the word tax, I mean, they go into a frenzy, because they think, oh, you're trying to grow the government, you're trying to get the government. I like that you use the word simplify. No, I'm trying to simplify things. Again, we live in America, but the home of the free. But in order for things to be free, we all have to contribute a little bit. With the universal tax, well, all the people who's not paying income tax, they would still have to contribute to society because they're going to buy their food, they're going to buy their gas, they're going to buy whatever. So, the system's broken right now, and half of me believes it's unintentional that we put a lot of people into office that have no clue what they're doing, and they're more worried about winning class president than they're worried about doing what they're supposed to do when they get elected. And so as a result, we've gotten to the point where we've gotten to. Now the other half of me kind of wonders if it's all intentional, and they're trying to, by creating this loophole, eventually we're all going to get herded down into one pasture. And if they can control where we get our food, and if they can control where we get everything else.
Well, and I was saying about this, and in a way, I have a lot of I almost went into public education.
Okay.
I actually have all the classes, but
got
two.
A lot of family in public education.
And they're probably sadly teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm not. I don't think I have any controversial views on it, but maybe on some of the stuff that's going on with school shootings and whatnot. But it's teachers are underappreciated, and I agree with that, and it's sad. And I think that a teacher should be one of the highest paid positions. And it's not just because I teach a class on the side right now at the university, but the teachers that have made an influence on me. And I was thinking this today. I think that public education is going to get to a point where people are no longer going to want to get into it. I didn't want to get into it.
Yeah, right.
And like a buddy of mine made a post the other day. It's like somebody's been on the podcast. It's like, I just toured, all the schools in Johnson County, and it was, awesome, and they're doing such a great job, and the teachers probably are, but due to the crazy oversight by administrators and state and federal regulations, and the population of students that are on this a free or reduced lunch, and the masses of, look, my dad's one of the smartest people maybe that I've ever known. But he's a different kind of smart. Like, he didn't go to college.
Wisdom.
He's a wise guy, and he just like things that I compliment him more and more when I'm around him, because like just something like simple as like hanging my TV on the wall in there. The studs didn't line up the way I wanted them to, and he's like, well, hey, because I was like, man, I can't figure out a way that I want to do this. It's going to fit and be even with the wall and look good. And he's just like, we're going to do it this way. And I was like, man, I never would have thought of that.
Yeah. Well, and he's probably been there, done that.
Yeah. I mean, he's worked, I mean, he's pretty much an amateur engineer. He's an industrial electrician. He's a master electrician, can do commercial, residential. Super handy guy. Can shoot a gun left-handed or right-handed on long gun, handgun, doesn't matter. Just a real ingenuitive guy. But he never received this. So, like, I'm not saying that people that don't receive some sort of edge. Like I got my jiu-jitsu black belt, and other than getting a master's degree, that's my biggest accomplishment. It's 11 years, 4 months.
Right.
But so for those class of people, that's the people you need to make it, and that's the vast majority of the society, I feel like. Statistically speaking, it's like, I'm not saying it's going to be 90, 93%, maybe it's only 75 of people that they do not receive any, traditional college. I don't know what the stats are. I could be making them up, but make things simple for those people. I don't, here's the thing. One of the reasons I didn't go into public education is because I'm a social studies guy, history. There's a likelihood that whatever job I got, only having had 6 hours, 2 classes of this particular course in my entire undergraduate degree, and I'm talking like I graduated 170 hours, I think.
Okay.
Which you need 124 to graduate. Imagine
that, you an overachiever.
Yeah. And then I went and got another degree after that. And I'm probably going to get a PhD before I'm 40. That's one of my goals. And working at this community college, I get half price tuition through U of A. So, most people are not going to go through that route. But I would have got stuck teaching maybe American government. You're going to teach civics, American government, economics. What? Like, I had economics. It was the only class I earned a B, and I was like, what is this? I saw the professor. He came to a birthday party at my gym like a year later, and I was like, thanks for giving me that grade I did not deserve. Because he graded on a curve, which I could not understand, which I'm going to have to grade this last test I administered on a curve. Just going to figure something out. But man, it's crazy that like the further you go in the semester, the more people start getting behind. Like I was talking to one of my professors about it yesterday. It was at our event, but so like he's just like, just focus on the ones at the top, try and bring the ones at the middle up, and those ones that are at the bottom, reach out to them. If you've already reached out to them, you did your part. But I got somebody that hadn't been there in 8 sessions, and they haven't withdrawn. And they missed the test. And they missed the test review. And I had this come up with another student last time, and I was just like, man, come on, guys. So I had I think 1 person not do the test last time, I think 3 this time. 1, legit excuse, good girl. But the other 2 is just like MIA, don't care. It's just crazy, man. Like, and they're paying thousands of dollars to go get, or, borrowing from the government thousands of dollars. And I get these loopholes. It's like, and then that student loan money, like that's another area. Like, I don't know what the answers are, but of reform, because it's like, I see it going on. It's like these, like after the refund checks came, attendance dropped.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. Like literally the day after. And then one of my students made a joke about it. And I was like, really?
Yeah. I mean, that's blowing my mind.
Yeah.
But I can sadly see that.
Man, I dropped, before I got my life together, I dropped out of college 3 times.
Okay.
And then it's finally, when I was 23, and I guess my brain fully developed, I started getting my life together and
Yeah.
doing this now. Always, the gym and teaching, and I'm going to be teaching more classes as time goes on and doing more podcasts. So,
well, I think, from high school to college, for most people, a break is good.
it is. And college is not for everyone.
Right.
And I think that, and this is like a movement going on right now, I guess, but vocational degrees, vocational training, trades, unions, those are somewhat in short supply is what people are saying. It's like everybody's been getting bachelor's degrees for so long, and then it was like my generation is, well, your bachelor's degree is not going to be good enough anymore.
I can imagine.
That was literally, they're like, well, you might as well just get a master's. And I got a master's because I was like, no way I'm teaching high school. There's no way I'm going to write your lesson plan on the board, and there's no way I'm going to do what you say. Like, because you don't know. Like, you don't know anything about this subject, and neither does the state of Arkansas, and probably neither does the federal government, because I made it through grades 1 through 12 without learning about the Vietnam War or the Gulf of Tonkin incident / resolution, unlimited war-making powers passed on to Lyndon Baines Johnson by Congress, unanimous vote, all but 2. And it's like, if we're going to do that, it's like, and then not teach our citizenry about it in general public education, I have a big problem with that. And there's, I don't have like really true academic freedom as a doctorate holding professor, but I do get some academic freedom. I get to say, I get some sort of a gray area between the book they give me, the consensus viewpoint of history, and then I can kind of blend those two and offer a third revision,
right?
A different point of view. Like, I bring in a lot of outside sources because the book just isn't going to fill in all the blanks. And man, teaching world history. Did you go to college?
Yeah.
Actually, you go here locally or?
Yeah, Tech.
Yeah, me too. Got both degrees there. So
I remember going back to high school a time or two and visiting with some of my teachers, and they were quite surprised that I was in college.
Yeah. Well, I've it feels good. I know that I've seen some of my teachers and ran into them. I've gone back to give talks at my high school, and it feels good to make, like, some of them are extremely proud of what I'm doing, and it feels good, like it feels good to make these people I'm talking about, they were difference makers, and how different like all this stuff I'm talking about is what I wouldn't get into teaching. Maybe that went on when I graduated high school in 2006. I'm about to be 31, but maybe I just didn't see it back then, but I feel like things have changed a lot. I'm sure. And then, my high school class is almost tripled in the amount of people that are graduating as seniors from 2006, so a dozen years. So that's, I'm sure there's a lot of changing dynamics, and they have to rein everything in, tighter control and whatnot. But there's, the statistic of I think Russellville is like 75% for your reduced lunch. Okay. That's so there's a lot of stuff that goes on. A lot of, like, I observed at Russellville, and they're like, yeah, that kid over there is homeless. Wow. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, I just gave him $20 because he has no food or money, and he sleeps on that kid's couch. Okay. And I'm like, he's like, I'm like, does this go on, And he's like, oh yeah, just 20 students like that. We just try to help, And it's like, don't tell anybody we're doing it. I don't know, man. It's just like, teachers are underappreciated, and I want to talk about why. That's what I like. So, like, me and my buddy were kind of debating about it, and it's like, yeah, they are, and it's not necessarily their fault, but it's just almost like law enforcement. It's like, they need people like me to go be a teacher, and I'm not willing to do it because, and I'm not trying to be that. I don't want that to come across as egotistical, but some of the people I've seen that I know that have gone on to become teachers, I'm like, you're not teaching my kid, like, but so it's like I feel like because of the way things are, you're getting a lower quality of individual first, and then not to say that those people won't get better at doing what they do. I know that I'm going to be way better when I teach this same course the next time.
Right.
I took this course on a 9-day notice, and I already have all my lectures written, know the flow of the class. The second time I do, it's going to be way better.
Yeah.
So there is, a couple of years learning curve, I think, for new teachers. But I think that, I don't know, man. It's like once I observed and did that whole part, I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. And the just general discontent. So like Russellville has a history department, like a lounge, it's like 9 people, all the social studies, psychology. They all kind of have lunch in there, and they all hate their job. I mean, when I was there, it's like everybody there hates the administration, hates their job, hates the oversight, and it's like, this is not good. How can you effectively guide the next generation when you are upset about your job and the policies and the way things are, and people won't let you do your job? And I don't know. I appreciate the heck out of people that are willing to do it, but I do think that we're attracting a lower tier of people that are going to get into it, just because I've run into a ton of people that are like, nah, I kind of wanted to be a teacher, and then I saw the direction it's going or the oversight, and I don't know. I think that because I think there will be a big demand for teachers. Mm-hmm. In years to come, just because the way public education is going. But what do I know?
You know more than I about that.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of teachers too, and I never would want to come across as unappreciative. There are some teachers that aren't good, but and there's some teachers that aren't good that get better. Mm-hmm. It's like that with everything,
right? Yeah.
So it's not to try to be overly general about anything, but man. So the epidemics of bullying, that's one of my biggest things. It's like the teachers see that go on a grand scale,
right, and
turn a blind eye to it. I feel like,
right,
in certain situations. I had a 11-year-old kid, 11, tell me the other day that he sees a fist fight at school every day.
Wow.
Here locally. Mm-hmm. Is that a Law and Order?
Yeah.
You special victims unit guy?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Big time. Man, I really had a hard time when Stabler left the show.
My wife did too.
So what season is it on? I actually have not kept up. It's on Hulu. I can watch it, but I haven't streamed it it's still going on. Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Benson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to catch up. Because Netflix is always way behind. It's like 22 seasons now, right? Or something like that.
For some reason, the number 26 is popping in my mind, but I mean...
Could be.
I don't know.
I could have stopped watching it the 22nd season.
Yeah.
It did, I will say that around when I did stop kind of keeping up with it, it was kind of slowing down a little bit.
Yeah, and for every 3 good episodes, there's 1 or 2 corny ones every so often, but... For the most part, I mean, that's kind of one of my veg shows.
Me too. I saw I watched every single episode all the way up through that. I was a big fan, and Stabler was one of my I really liked that guy.
Yeah, I probably need to watch. I wasn't watching it much then. There used to be a lot of different Law and Orders.
Yeah, I know. I never really kept up with the original, just Law and Order. Yeah. But there's Special Victims Unit, and then Criminal Intent with Vincent D'Onofrio, and But I never really. The CSI is the same thing. Right. Did you listen to the Michael Sandow episode, Jerry Bruckheimer's nephew? Yeah. Coincidental. And that dude has shot a movie with Maynard from Tool. Okay. You listen to Tool very much?
A little bit. When they first came out, definitely. But over the years,
they haven't done anything in over 12 years.
Well, that's probably why then. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw him in concert a couple years ago, and I was not super happy about it. I just didn't have good seats and stuff. But we got tickets to A Perfect Circle, the different band project of the lead singer, and we're seeing them in May 26th or something like that. So you get a lot of concerts?
There's a lot this year I'd like to go to. In the past, no, I used to. I used to live in Nashville, Tennessee.
Really?
Yeah, for 12 years. When I graduated tech, I moved to Nashville.
Awesome, man.
And I seen a ton of concerts.
So you probably
there.
saw it boom, huh? I've heard that like a lot of the musicians are leaving Nashville right now. You know who Sturgill Simpson is?
Yeah.
He lived in Nashville and just moved to Kentucky. He said that it's blown up so much over the last 10 years in terms of it being the musical hub.
And that, I got out in 2002. And that was kind of when, as far as the music industry, it used to, you had to be present to win. And that was about the time when a lot of things were starting to go in digital. You could record on a computer, and a lot of people started moving away even then. I can't imagine what it's like now. I've still got a lot of friends there, and I think the last time I went back was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Oddly enough,
that's what I think I told you. That's where we saw Roger Waters.
Oh, okay. No,
so awesome
at the arena downtown.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, amazing. That was one of the biggest arenas he did on his tour. And so when I saw him in Tulsa, they didn't roll out the same production. And my buddy, the weekend before I saw him in Tulsa, saw him in Kansas City, the first stop on his show, if I'm not mistaken, on the tour. And he had the same production at Kansas City as he had at the but the Box Center in Tulsa, they didn't do that.
Okay. Yeah, you got to get the full show on that, I would think.
Yeah, if you get a chance, man, you can. They put all their rehearsal videos up, but there are so many. Like the performance of Dogs, Pink Floyd's Dogs, from the 2017 Roger Waters, it's the best performance I've ever seen of it. And I'm a big David Gilmour fan, man.
Yeah.
And it's like almost depressing because there's two dudes up there that play with him. I don't remember their names, but they just totally shred. And it's like, yeah, it takes two of y'all. But man, their performance of Dogs is just, it's like they do Dogs and then they go into Pigs, 3 different ones, both off the Animals album. And that's when like the pinnacle of the lights and the visual, and it was such an amazing experience.
I can imagine.
But I watch the videos from it all the time. Well, we actually find videos of the show we went to in Nashville, super quality videos.
Yeah.
So what were you doing in Nashville? Did you work there? Did you move there for a job?
Well,
playing a band?
I left here because I always had an interest in music, creating music. Wasn't for sure what that interest was, though. And I knew that was a music town. I didn't realize it was so... This might sound like a stupid statement, but I didn't realize it was just so country-based music town. At the time, I wasn't really into country music. Hadn't listened to it too much. And
I'm not too much, but I have been getting more into like Sturgill Simpson, who sings about crazy psychedelic things in a country. Like he's talking about the universe and mushrooms or whatever. He is just on a weird level with his country music. But like Todd Snyder, I wouldn't consider him country, but
right.
The Drive-By Truckers are more southern rock, but they kind of dance around those lines. So it's like as I'm getting older, I'm getting more into folk. I like folk music, but more sort of folk country. Kind of goes back and forth.
Right.
There's several bands I listen to that are like that. I actually enjoy some Garth Brooks.
Mm-hmm. Well, today, it all blends together.
Yeah.
But back then, it was very, I thought I wanted to do something with music. I saw that all the labels had a presence there. That Sony Records had an office there, Warner Brothers had a records there, and all the majors and all their little subsidiaries, if that's how you pronounce that word.
There's a lot of syllables in that word.
I thought, I'll go to Nashville and see what's going on. And so I got there and I experimented with a bunch of different things. I knew I never wanted to be an artist or a performer. I didn't know if I wanted to be a musician or a recording engineer. And it turned out over a period of time, songwriting is what kind of just spoke to me the most.
Really?
Yeah. I just apparently always enjoyed to write songs.
That's fascinating because, like, for example, the Roger Waters, David Gilmour dynamic. David Gilmour flat out tell you, like, I am not a lyricist.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard, like, my favorite band's Widespread Panic. And I've heard the current guitar player, he wasn't the guitar player from, 87 to 02, they had a guy named Mikey Hauser, and he died of pancreatic cancer. And then in 06, they replaced him with Jimmy Herring. But he talks about, like, coming up, and they're from Athens, Georgia.
Okay.
But he talks about coming up, and he's like, yeah, we could play all of Zeppelin's tunes, but where's Robert Plant, man? You know what I mean? There's no Robert Plant. And he's talking about the difference in a front man and the different shapes that a front man takes. And Panic is unique in that they have John Bell as their front man, but I really feel it's about every member of the band.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not their drummer, Dwayne Trucks, because he doesn't look like he cares about anything. But he's just
That's
like...
a drummer, though.
Yeah. I mean, literally expressionless.
Most of the time, they're in their own world.
Yeah. But it's a good lyricist. I mean, think about how many pop singers don't write their own songs.
Right.
Did you ever sell any songs?
Well, no, that was the problem, because I just don't fit anywhere. I wrote music more than I wrote lyrics. Lyrics always was, I would come up with music and then I would try to add lyrics to it. And the lyrics that I came up with were very, I guess, personal, which would work for a singer-songwriter who's performing their own stuff. But when you go to pitch this stuff, even though, like, take for instance, I don't know, have you ever heard of Mary Chapin Carpenter?
The name sounds familiar.
She doesn't, you don't hear a lot about her these days, but in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, she was one of the artists that I really liked her work. But she was a singer-songwriter, and her stuff, I guess, was very personal to her situation, so it worked for her. But when you're influenced by people like that, and you write personal music and go to pitch it for somebody else to sing, lots of times you'll get these looks like, ooh, that's just a little too emotional. Or,
well, I mean, yes, I could see that, but too, I mean, there are a lot of universal themes as well. I mean, there's things that you go through that you would write about that would probably appeal to a large audience. And
that's probably my downfall, because I would try to, once I got that critique, that criticism, which was totally valid, I would try to shape the song into something else to make it more universal, but then it started losing that magic for me. So
creative process.
Yeah,
man.
writing the music was almost therapy for me, but then when I started trying to shape it for somebody else, then I just didn't, I lost the interest in it.
You ever listen to a guy named Steven Wilson?
No.
He's one of the, let's say he's you, but learned all the instruments and just started putting out all his own music.
Okay.
There's another girl I've been listening to. Actually, we'll throw her up on the TV just to see what you think and give her a little shout out. Maybe I'll hashtag her, but I think she's from Australia or New Zealand, somewhere like that. Her name is Tash Sultana.
That sounds familiar.
She's a solo artist, writes some lyrics, but we saw outside of Roger Waters in Tulsa a band kind of like this. It was two guys, but what they were doing with their looping, and like I've got a looper in the other room there, and it's actually a buddy of mine. I might get with you. I would like to get a nice, I can only do a couple of different loops at once before it, I don't really know a whole lot about loopers. It's not even my looper, but I would like to get one. I've loved playing with it because it allows me to play with myself. I mean, it's hard to get the dynamic with other musicians going that aren't going to flake out on you or whatever. But yeah, this girl, Tash Sultana, does all this looping and special effects. I'm about to, on some of my audio episodes, like when we listen to stuff like this, I'm going to start pulling it in and recording it. She's super young, too.
Yeah.
I
thought the name sounded familiar, but she does not look familiar.
I bet you've seen, there's some videos of her playing on Facebook that have gone viral.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is not a very good representation of what I like listening to her about her, but she gets this like almost like real trippy,
atmospheric.
Yes.
Yeah.
And does a lot of looping, and I mean, this her effects set up. Yeah. And all of her pedals and all of her processors, and she's got a little DJ. I'm really into electronic music.
Oh, yeah.
Not solely, obviously, but I really like this band called the Floozies. They're big, gigantic.
Okay.
You know, and some bands have kind of, like the Floozies, they have a drummer and a guitar player who also DJs, like right there, just like, they got all these samples they do, but... See, so she's doing all this herself, live.
Right.
And she has like 20-song set she plays.
Yeah.
So it's like
and
super. Look at all those pedals.
Right. That's the key. She's able to turn them on and off individually.
Yeah.
And with looping, that's very important. Otherwise, I mean, if you're just sitting around the room, you can overdub one loop onto another. But when you're performing that for an audience, that might get a little repetitive. And
there's a girl Rob McCormick brought up on the podcast. I don't remember her name, but I've seen her on Facebook several times playing. Like, she does like a looping cover of Everlong by the Foo Fighters, and
kind of mashes it up.
Yeah, Arpeggi and Weird Fishes by Radiohead.
Yeah.
So
I don't remember her name either. But
she's fascinating. But this girl, for some reason, I've remembered her name just because she is out there like a planet, man. Like, just like, wow, you're a solo artist. I mean, you see, and I think it's like even 3-piece bands like Blink-182, for example,
right, have
a different lead singer now. They're not even the same band anymore.
Okay.
It's like, so those 3 dudes can't even get along. Imagine someone like Widespread Panic has 6 members, or Roger Waters, man, the amount of musicians he had, 3 guitar players, 2 backup singers, Lucius, these 2 girls, 2 drummers, like a percussionist, and then a kit, himself, of course. I mean, it was like a dozen, at some point, a sax player. It was like a dozen instruments or musicians on stage. Like, that's a production.
Right.
That was, I mean, for Roger Wade, it was a production. But, you know, it's fascinating to see this in comparison to that.
Right.
I don't know. It's just... That's a creator right there.
Yeah.
That's a content provider. Thanks for the content.
Right.
So, but that's it. You know, like I love that Dan Carlin calls it amateur content. Dan Carlin's this guy has a podcast, Hardcore History.
Okay.
But it's like, that's when me and you, like, it's when we're done, I'm going to put this on the internet. I've just provided the world with amateur content.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you are creating some content right now.
Yeah, well, I'm doing the same thing on my gym's YouTube page.
Okay.
I got 171 videos on there right now. And then I've just did the first one yesterday, a 34-minute clip. But I've got several of the podcasts I've done, and like when I get caught up or I have a lull, or I might take a week and not do any podcasts and go back. But it's my goal to pull a bunch of clips for YouTube out of the podcasts I've done and put those on just to keep boosting my videos and views and uploads.
Right.
So.
And that's right. I would imagine that would be where you get most of your views, because I mean,
shorter videos.
When you sit down, I like listening to podcasts before I go to bed, or I'll be at the store there doing paperwork and I'll put your podcast on and listen to it. But you know, 1, 2, 3 hours out of the day, you're not going to find somebody who's, you know.
Every time I tell someone about a podcast, it's typically like a 1-hour one. Like, so some of my favorite, like I had a guy come on named Eli Craner. It's an author. Like, we talked for like an hour. And it's just like, it's probably my favorite one I've done in terms of like, I didn't know the guy at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like at all.
Right.
He was like a referral. Like, you should have this guy on the pod. I know you want to have me on, but you should have this guy. And I was going to have him and the other guy on. So they were friends, and they're both published authors. And the other guy, that's my good friend, he had to end up canceling.
Okay.
So it was just me and this guy I don't even know sitting here having a long form conversation. And it's just, it was, you know, it was really good because, too, it was one where, because I didn't know him, he talked the most, and I was really inquisitive and curious. Right. Just like, I mean, I've asked you a ton of questions too, but it almost made my job as I don't even really see myself as an interviewer. Right. But I am in a way.
I mean, basically, this is me and you hanging out talking, and anybody who wants to get it. And I'm not
distracting you at work.
Right.
Well, not saying I do, but, you know, I mean, that's definitely something I'm aware of, because, like, people come in and want to shoot the breeze with me, and I'm like, I'm trying to mop. Or whatever. Yeah. You know, I'm definitely down, but I'll be doing a private lesson, somebody will stop by, or I'm just done and closing up and somebody stops by, or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, you know, I do start super early, and I'm usually there 2 or 3 times a day, drive to Morrilton a couple of times a week. I'm trying to do 5 podcasts a week for the last few weeks. I should get 5 out this week. And I got 5 out last week. So
what number is this one going to be?
This, I think, is number 40 total. So,
okay. Is this going to be a Life Unraveled?
Yeah, this will be a Life Unraveled. This is number 19. I've done, let's see, we've done 8 MMA shows, 3 jiu-jitsu shows. I've been working a lot on my History Unraveled. I've been putting a lot of effort into making it cool. And so I'm going to try and sit down and do that one in probably like a week. And that'll be about 10 episodes. Mm-hmm. So it's on 1968. But then I've done show reviews. Oh, really?
Birth year.
Really? Yeah. Man, what a crazy year to be alive, be born.
Yeah.
So
didn't Hendrix die that year? Jimi Hendrix?
Actually, he died in 69, the same year as speaking of conspiracy, the same year as the moon landing. I do, you know, I know people that are historians of the Cold War that don't think, but man, there's a lot. I look at that because I took a class on espionage, and just the stuff that intelligence-wise that we have done with the CIA and the NSA, and we Google Earth technology in 1988. So, or we didn't, the government did. Mm-hmm. So I'm just kind of like, in the way I look at the space race. And you fast forward like Ronald Reagan and Star Wars. Right. It's like, I kind of am like, when these people are talking about the moon landing and they cite some of these key examples, I get it. But then too, I can accept not knowing on that one. I don't really care either way. Yeah. So.
Talking about, it's funny. I made a comment one time on one of Rob's Facebook post. Rob's always putting up very philosophical posts. Yeah. And it gets a lot of debate going, and I love them.
Yeah, no, like Rob and I, we talked about a bunch of stuff.
He'll dive right in.
And then too, like right after we were done, he's like, that one part about that one thing, maybe the world's not ready for that one. And I was like, it's probably a good idea. Yeah. So I did edit out a small little clip of something that I got onto. Yeah, I know.
Out clips, or what is that called?
Yeah, little outtakes. Deleted scenes. But and I totally agree. I mean, there's certain issues that, and it wouldn't have been anything that would have been construed as hate speech, but maybe under YouTube's current policies would have. Right.
But he was I got into the debate. Most of the time, I just enjoy reading them, but and I just
here for the comments.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I made the comment about bringing something up about moon rocks, you know, and how people will use that as proof that, I guess, you know, we went to the moon. And I was just completely not really being a smart aleck, but I mean, I was just kind of throwing something out there. It's like, well, you know, somebody can hand me a rock and tell me it's from the moon, but how do I know for sure? That's the thing.
You didn't see him pick it up from the moon and then bring it back to you and hand it to you.
Right. And then all of a sudden, I mean, just all these comments got unleashed because I didn't realize that was a thing, that people didn't, you know, that some people believe it and some people don't. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. I just opened up a whole can that I'd had no idea existed.
Yeah, no, it's
But and then so then when I start researching what people are talking about and everything, and I'm thinking about how are we able to transmit that signal from the moon all the way to the Earth?
How are we able to land on the moon in a tinfoil can?
At the time, I mean, were we broadcasting even football games live? I don't know. I mean, that, were there satellites where, I mean, today we can stream anything online, but
totally, there's a lot of holes in the narrative, and I'm fascinated by. So some people theorize this.
Okay.
Some people theorize that CIA, and by some people, I don't mean just Alex Jones. A bunch of people have said this. Eddie Bravo thinks it. Several of Joe Rogan's friends think it, that the CIA contacted him and was like, you're going to shut up about these issues, and you're going to play dumb on these issues. We're going to kill your family.
Wow.
I mean, dude, if the CIA is going to come to both Eisenhower and JFK with a proposal to kill American citizens and make it look like Cuba did it.
Right.
And then fast forward to your birth year, 1960. That's when the Gulf of Tonkin resolution was passed in Congress. Actually, no, that was 64. It was 64, 65. It wasn't 68. Tet Offensive happened in 68. But the kind of the culmination of all of that activity we had in Vietnam, it was definitely passed by LBJ. I think it's 64, 65. He had I believe, just won re-election because after Kennedy died, he became president and then had to run and get elected right after that.
Okay.
So Kennedy, that was in 63. But, and then literally LBJ not running for re-election in 68, you have the most corrupt administration to hit the White House possibly that we know about. Nixon.
Oh yeah.
And that's the war on drugs guy, and also the person who really propagated the space race as a part of the Cold War, or the person who at least sent, it's like you want to win some hearts and minds, you send somebody to the moon during the Cold War. That's how I look at it. It's like, could this have been some sort of for lack of a better way of putting it, like a false flag, like almost like, because it was, Russia had put the first man in space, I believe it was, and put the first animal in space, and it's like, well, we're going to the moon, beat that,
right?
And then fast forward to the 80s, and it's like Ronald Reagan's Star Wars program and the little digital videos they made. Right. We're gonna shoot the satellite lasers, and it's gonna. So a lot of people don't even believe that you can. That intercontinental ballistic missiles are a thing. I think that they probably are, but not on the levels. Like, I know Putin's just released that they have these new intercontinental missiles that could, hit the United States from Russia or something, and that we don't have any system that can deal with it. And it's like, back when that was the threat, Ronald Reagan, it was like we were on the front end of that. It's like, we have this system that can deal with anything you create. But it was just it was a video. Mm-hmm. It was fake. It was a video and some speeches about this theoretical stuff that would never even work at that time. Maybe it would now. I don't know. Star Wars. Cool name.
It got a lot of attention.
Yeah, I know.
Until I found out there was no action figures involved. I'm like, forget it.
Forget this, man.
Boring.
Yeah.
Lot better stuff going on in the 80s.
Yeah. I was growing up in the 90s.
Yeah.
But I got to appreciate the 90s. But I wish I would have been like a little older in the 90s. I would have appreciated stuff a lot more. And that's like probably I listen to more music from the 90s than most other eras. I listen to a lot of music from the 70s too, though. Mm-hmm. I probably listen to less music from the 80s, though.
And I love 80s music. But anytime I'm watching, behind the scenes on VH1 or any of the artists talking about the music they made in the 80s, they all hate it.
Interesting.
They all,
yeah.
And that's, like Queen, another one, Bites the Dust. I mean, I love that.
I love that song.
But when people talk about Queen, they very rarely talk about that song.
Yeah, I know.
And time has, revealed that they do have greater songs than that, obviously. But I mean, When somebody says Queen, I think Another One Bites the Dust. Heart, their Bad Animals album was, I mean, I loved it. But anytime you watch a documentary where they're talking about those years, I don't even know if they play those songs in concert now. They seem to not like them, and that just seems to be the case with so many different artists.
Yeah, you know, time. Billy Corgan was talking about that. You listen to Smashing Pumpkins?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not really an 80s era band,
right.
But he was just saying, he's like, fans can't accept that I don't want to play the songs that they want to hear that are our famous songs, or, you know, from the Pumpkins. He's like...
Well, I think he's notorious for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's like, you know, and he was talking about balancing it out. That's a good episode of Joe Rogan if you ever get. That's what I love about the like Rogan archive. I was telling somebody this yesterday. I started watching every episode at 8:50, and I'd seen some episodes before that. And there's several people who's had reoccurring. So like I've gone back and watched maybe 100 episodes or more from the archive. Maynard was on several times from 0 to, or a couple of times from 0 to 850. Graham Hancock, Danelli Benelli, Dan Carlin. So some people I've went and watched all their episodes. Mm-hmm. You know, I was like, hey, you know, when I had this person on the podcast, I'll go back. But you, like this, Joe Rogan started an MMA show. So like when I was going to do the podcast, I was like, well, I'm going to definitely, like we were talking about martial arts a lot today, even though it's not something that you do. We're still talking about it and having a conversation, but like instead of trying to, I'll probably talk about it on different podcasts, but now I have like a whole show that I talk about it on. It's like this is all we're talking about for the most part. Same thing with movies and television. I do a spot for that stuff.
Yeah, I heard you.
Yeah, so like I'm about to do a review on Goliath. Yeah, it's a Billy Bob Thornton show on Amazon. Okay, 8 episodes. Totally awesome, man. I binge watched it in 2 days, and they're apparently making a second season, but the first season could have been a standalone. It was good. I was surprised because I didn't watch it for like a year, and then when I did watch it, I was like, this is amazing. So I'm gonna do a little review on that, but those are something I'm trying to do for like shorter clips, like what you were saying. The MMA shows, that allows me to balance out things without trying to drown my audience that might not fight or care about that stuff, and as much as I'm going to want to talk about it. Big fan of music, obviously. So get to concert reviews and things of that nature. I'm trying to, anytime we go to a concert, I'm trying to do a music Unraveled on it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm a history guy, so... Right. You got a lot of interest. It allows me to balance it out, but kind of, you know, balance out like this. Like the history will be all just one segment, one time on that topic, and then I'll do another history topic on down the line. You know, I want to do a history of conspiracies and a history of drugs on the podcast. So, and just take like things like the moon landing, and just look at the Warren, was it the Warren Commission's report when JFK was assassinated? A bunch of just things that people are divided on in American history, particularly in the 20th century. So, but that's, you know, like getting to talk about that stuff is what really just levels me out as a person. I feel like I just like, because like Cora will joke around with me. She'd be like, "You can't say idea anymore today."
Can't say idea?
Yeah, because I'm always like, "Hey, I have this idea." Oh. You know, this about whatever, like my podcast, classes, a technique, a brand decision, a T-shirt. Whatever. Yeah. I've got a wrestling mat in my kitchen rolled up. It's not your typical person, maybe. I don't know. I just really like, and I tell people this, like I've surrounded myself with my interest 100%, and I just do those things, but it stresses me out like anybody else. I still like I still got to live like everybody else and pay the bills and the mortgages and eat and pay the taxes. Right. But even though it's stressful, it's like I feel like people that don't do what they're passionate about and people what do what they're passionate about, they're both stressed out. It's just like how you learn to deal with it. Yeah.
Stressed out, not happy.
Yeah.
I mean, because, you know, when you're creating content, all this stuff you're talking about is stuff that you enjoy. and it's what makes you authentic. And so many creators will look for an angle, trying to fill a void, and try to build an audience quickly by doing something they're not passionate about, or doing things that it's not authentic to them, and it never works.
Yeah, and I've learned a lot just in a short time. I've only been doing it since December 27th or something like that. But I've told a lot of people, I'm like, just look, give me 100 episodes. Just be patient, as I appreciate you listening to the podcast. I'm still figuring this out, you know, and I'm humble enough to say that. I'm not a podcaster yet. I am, but I'm a white belt podcaster, and I think that after I hit that 100th episode, I might be a blue belt. So, it's just a process for me. I think that my big milestones will be, I think that there's a lot of stuff I've been talking about with production that I'm wanting to have in place by episode 100.
Yeah.
And then by episode 250, I think that I'll be extremely settled in. And at that point, hopefully monetization and my audience is at a place where, and in the meantime, I'm going to start doing recordings in 3 to 4 different spots. So here in the studio, which I'm going to beef up more, add camera angles and do something with this wall over here. But I'm going to do some podcasts. I want to do some at Midtown Coffee, with this recorder here and the USB mic. So, and I can even take my camera there. And so if I wanted to, I could do audio only. My office at the university. So I'm just going to start recording all my lectures while I'm writing them, not while I'm giving them per se, but just like in my office there, just recording them and using them for online classes. But I can also package some of that into my, podcasting channel as well. Like Joe Rogan's been losing it on the Reformation, and I'm like, dude, I just gave a whole segment on that. Martin Luther all the way. Yeah, it's a Protestant Reformation of Christianity. Yeah, wild times, 1540s. But so people are interested in that stuff, and it's authentic, and it's just how you get it out. Something as simple as custom thumbnails. Like I'm having a couple more of those made for. I haven't put any of this out, but I have a logo for every different spot that I'm doing. All you've seen is the Life Unraveled logo, and maybe my background, which is just the logo with the text. It's my YouTube cover and Facebook cover photo. But I have a different logo, text, and color, but it's round. It looks the same for after the show. And I just got to go through and add them, man. I just try and balance it all out. There's several times where I got to get caught up and put thumbnails on the last 5 podcasts. I don't have a producer or anything. Right.
And that's the key. There's only so many hours in the day, and you're using every one of them.
I'm trying, man.
But get you an assistant.
Yeah, no, that's well, I'm hoping that eventually something like that can happen. Yeah. My goal with podcasting, maybe the zenith, would be, you may have heard me talk about this on the podcast before, I've talked about it a couple, is to approach someone like the AMP or Verizon Arena and say, give me an office, set into your contracts with your artist 1 hour where they will be on this podcast, and you will put this content out organically. It will get tons of views because of who the artist is. We'll put it out. You'll be making, Joe Rogan makes over $100,000 an episode on YouTube.
Wow.
Wow. And sometimes he does, and I've done 3 episodes on a Friday before, hour and a half episodes. And that's why I'm doing, why I think it's important for me to do the, some podcasters are solo podcasters. They don't have guests on. Dan Carlin doesn't really have guests on.
Okay.
He is a guest on other people's podcasts.
Right.
So I have that. It's Life Unraveled will always be guest spots like yourself. But the History Unraveled, I'll have guests on MMA, but I'm also going to do solo ones too. And that's helpful to me too, because not always are people interested in what I'm interested in, but like I said, I do this for me too.
Right.
It brings me down. I've got a lot of maybe hyperactivity. I don't know what you call it. I definitely have a condition though. But I just want to produce stuff. So it sounds like you probably have been the same way, though.
Yeah.
I'm a list maker, man.
Yeah.
I'm always.
I'm not
organizing.
throwing. I haven't thrown a lot of content out into the world yet, but there's a lot of stuff that eventually I will.
You know, and too, that was a big thing for me, is just figuring out what mediums to put my stuff on. Like when you told me, what app do you listen to the podcast on? Like Listen FM or Castrex, or
it is. I think it's called Castbox.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's one I don't even know that I'm on. But Spotify submitted me to like 4 other platforms once I got on Spotify. And I wonder too, I've noticed on Spotify, yeah, I didn't even know I was on there. Spotify doesn't have all my episodes. I don't know why. I don't know if I said a bad word or what. Yeah, excellent. They added some more recently. But
I was using just a native podcast app, but I'm getting low on memory, so I had to delete it. For some reason, it was...
Man, I finally bit the bullet and got a 256 gig telephone.
Wow.
I know, man. I'm just never going to have to delete my pictures ever, and it's great. That was my last one, was 16 gigs, and it wore me out.
This is like Galaxy 4.
Yeah, I've always, for the most part, had the iPhone.
Yeah.
And have been pretty happy with it. I don't really want to switch, but I almost did. I made AT&T. I was like, you guarantee me that you told Apple that that's bullshit about dialing your phone back so you get an upgrade.
Right.
You know, I was like, that's not going to go on. And I'm like, and if it is going to go on, we're done with the iPhone. And they're like, no, AT&T was not happy about that apparently, and they have said it's not. And I've had no issues with this phone, but my last one, it's like it starts getting older. It's like basically I just pretty much hardly ever do the software updates. Mm-hmm. But I noticed the last 2 updates I did on my last phone just tanked it. Like, it wouldn't work. Like, everything was slow. And in part, but then I'd always keep my memory cleaned out and bare minimum on my apps. But I'm like maybe 16 gigs on that one, and no big deal. Because I got all my apps. As I download a bunch of apps, I'm like, I'm keeping all of these on my phone. Mind mapping apps and MMA news apps. Stuff I was not going without because I didn't have the space.
Right.
So I need to get like a cell phone spot. That's another thing. I'm going to get sponsors. That's the goal, is to get kind of a sponsor in everything I'm doing. MMA or jiu-jitsu sponsor, a music. I want to get a live concert streaming. So let's say you and I have a favorite band. Mm-hmm. Hey, man, so-and-so Heart's playing a live show, or whoever, you know, you just mentioned a couple of times.
Let's go Metallica.
Yeah, well, okay. So let's say we can't make it to the Verizon show. It's sold out. We didn't get our tickets.
Right.
There's several services that will stream that live, and you can pay a membership to be a part of their network and get all the... So what I would like to do is, like, we did a fight companion on the last UFC, where we just watched the fights for 3 hours and talked about them. I want to do that with a concert that I can't necessarily go to that's an epic concert. Mm-hmm. But I want those people to sponsor the podcast and just give me a free membership, and then I'll do an ad at the beginning. Hey, you got to get on Quello Concerts or Nugs Net. Those are the 2 biggest ones. And, you know, give a little spill. Joey Diaz from the Church What's Happening Now was doing a sponsor spot earlier today on, I listened to his last one, for Fuji mats. I have Fuji mats in my gym. So, you know, it's like becoming an influencer. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't really even tried on social media. And I like how this podcast are like submitting me to all these other platforms. And I applied for a Wikipedia page, and I haven't heard, it's been a week. I haven't heard anything back. Like, you have to go through it. There's a screening process, apparently. But I've got, until I do a website, I'm put all my gear, my keywords. Just, you know, I wrote some text, the history, when my first episode aired, and what platforms we're on, hyperlinks, and that way, it's, you know, gets me out on there a little bit more. But that's a lot of stuff I'm going to have to get in order. I'm going to have to start getting my social media, pushing out more on Facebook, and make a Twitter, and that way people want to sponsor me.
Right.
I get good downloads. I have thousands of listens already on all the platforms, but
that's me.
Yeah. Yeah. You and 3 other really loyal listeners. But it's nice. It's growing, but it's like I'm fascinated by figuring these things out. Like how would I want to get someone to sponsor me? I got sponsors when I competed in jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. And Cora has sponsors now. She competes. She's got some higher end sponsors to support her fighting career. So that seems to be a route that all these other podcasters are taking, getting sponsors to kind of push their product for them.
When is her episode going to be on?
I don't know.
Is she not wanting to do it?
Well, like, here's the thing. Like, it'll be like 10 o'clock at night, and then on a whim, she's like, let's do a podcast. And I'm like, we don't do the podcast that way. Because, like, I like to have, I want to do a Life Unraveled or an MMA episode with her. I want to do both with her, but I'm like, let's schedule it. And she's like, no. But, it's let it be that one episode. Yeah, let it be that one episode that's just totally impromptu.
Totally spontaneous.
We will. There's a couple of shows we've watched together that I'm wanting to get her on to talk about, because she is extremely smart and extremely articulate, but she is a little bit of an introvert. Self-admission. It's not anything she's like, ashamed of or anything, but we do so much, and I'm just like, I keep taking the energy, I'll put off some more. And it's draining to some people to be, and me too at times, to be as involved as we are.
Yeah. Well, you're starting to build, I would think that you're starting to build an audience of, you talk about certain people over and over in different episodes. So eventually, I think the audience would like to meet those people.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's what, and I'm trying to do that too.
Winning that fight last week, and
we're definitely going to do one, whether it's a Life Unraveled spot or an MMA spot. But she's definitely going to come on and talk about which this whole last week. When she and I have an interesting dynamic, because we own our business together.
Right.
We're married.
Right.
And I'm her coach.
Okay. Yeah.
Very interesting dynamic. So, we butt heads on things a lot. It's like, hey, can you do this thing for the business? Well, why don't you do it? Just little things like that. Well, the division of labor allows me to do these things, and this is in your department. Right. Oh, is it now?
Right.
And it's both of us are that way.
Yeah.
It's a balance thing. It's like we have employees and stuff, but she's pretty much youth program director and business manager. And I'm head coach, adult program, and then we kind of co-direct the fitness program and yoga, and have employees that work in assistant instructors work in any given part of that. But when it comes to coaching, she gets all her info from me, unless she travels to train with, like, our coach that cornered with me the other night. Ironically, the same guy that married us, Danny Dring. You probably heard me talk about him. I'm hoping he comes on April 12th.
Okay.
He's coming in town for an event at my school, and this guy's the first person to get a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in Arkansas.
Wow.
So in 2001. But just like, it takes years.
Right.
I think he said the first Jiu-Jitsu seminar he did was in 88, and didn't earn his black belt till 2001. So I get that.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting dynamic, and I would like to get her on to. I'm sure people would love to hear us talk about it.
It would, yeah, it would be interesting.
Yeah, well, and it is like how many people we are getting. It's an interesting couple of people doing. Like I said, a buddy of mine, Daniel Ray. I was talking to him earlier, and he's been listening to podcasts. And I was like, "Yeah, man, this guy owns a music business, a music store." And he's coming on. He's like, "Man, that is an interesting person to talk to. That is kind of a niche. That cool. It's not the everyday thing you get to sit down and talk about. Small business owner and everything.
Right.
But that's I think that people that's the authenticity of just being real and sitting down. And hey, most people aren't martial arts school owners, and that's the only job that they really do. And also follow all their passions. Right. And I like in some way want to inspire people to do that more. So
yeah, and it does. I mean, I've dabbled, being a creator. I've dabbled with, eventually I'll put up some kind of podcast that deals with, once I get a lot of music out there, just kind of, I look at it the way that when you watch a DVD, they have a director's commentary.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, where he's explaining what was going through his mind when he made the movie. And eventually, because when I was in Nashville and some of the feedback, a lot of people would misinterpret a lot of my stuff. I guess it kind of ties into that being so personal. And to me, it didn't really feel personal, or you wouldn't have heard it to begin with. If it was one of those things where it's just so personal, then I'm not going to play it for anybody. I felt like it was okay to let it out into the world, but apparently, it would get misunderstood. And in this day and age, when you've got so many resources to where you can go and get the behind-the-scenes information, that it will be a companion to, once I do put more music out there, that if somebody's like, what in the world does that song mean, they can go and hopefully listen to a podcast about it.
Widespread, someone did a series of podcasts on Widespread Panic like that. It wasn't Panic, but they did. I forget. They called it something like story of the song or something like that. It's basically like interviewing them about why they wrote that song.
Yeah.
And putting it out. Panic has been so good about putting out videos. I made a Facebook status the other day. I heard him come on in the coffee house that I go to, Midtown Coffee. And I was like, man, it's going to be a good day. I've never even heard Widespread Panic over speakers anywhere except my house or my car or a concert.
Right.
So it's crazy. I never even meet anyone who knows who they are.
Right. I mean, I'm not familiar with the material. I've heard the name.
Yeah. They
for a long time, but
they are, just while we're sitting here, I'm going to throw up a song. They shred. It's wild how good. And I think that it's more so, they have a catalog of over 300 songs.
Right.
Do you like Bill Withers?
Ain't No Sunshine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, have you ever heard that song he does, Use Me?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to use me up. I'll play you Widespread Panic's version of that. I got to see them play this live, actually. Oh, let's not do that. Okay, they have actually had more sold out shows at Red Rocks. You ever been to Red Rocks?
Just seen it on TV.
We went there and saw Incubus play, but they have more sold out shows at Red Rocks than any other place, any other band ever. So,
he's playing a Roland digital piano. Look at that.
There you go. You sell Roland?
Yeah, since the mid '80s. I'm not a real brand. Earlier, you had asked about brands that I carry. I'm not a real brand person. To me, instruments are tools, and whatever tool does the job.
Yeah.
But Roland is a fantastic.
I noticed you have a lot of Dean guitars in there. I played a few Deans, and I really like the action on the neck.
Yeah. Played on the acoustics or
electrics.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of why I started carrying Dean, because of their electric guitars.
Yeah, I was highly impressed. A guy I went to high school with had a Dean, and it was super nice.
A lot of people aren't familiar with their acoustic instruments because that's funky.
I know, right? Their guitar player there, Joe Herman, they do, they do a lot of covers like this, but their piano player sings some of their songs.
He's playing through a Roland Blues Cube amp plug.
Nice. There you go. See, John Bell's voice is amazing.
I mean, they're one of them bands, when I think of them and what little I do know about them, it's like, isn't every musician phenomenal at their position?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. And
two, so their original drummer, Todd Nance, quit the band in like 2014, retired. And
after how long?
Since 87. Okay. So 97, 07, over 25 years, something like that. Jimmy Herring joined the band in 2006, but he played for the Dead. He played also with Colonel Bruce Hampton.
They're kind of like, when I hear their name, I think of them being the grandfathers of this.
Until they added John Mayer.
John Mayer?
John Mayer plays with the Dead.
Now?
Yes.
Really?
We can pull that up if you want. Actually, it's not bad. We consider going to see them, but it's just kind of like, do we really want to go see John Mayer play with the Dead? But Jimmy Herring played, so like, here's what I tell people. Widespread Panic has a catalog of 300 songs. Yeah. Covers, originals, everything. Jimmy Herring had a catalog of 300 songs he had to learn for the Dead.
Right.
And then also Colonel Bruce Hampton has tons of albums that Jimmy Herring recorded with him on in the Aquarium Rescue Unit. And Colonel Bruce Hampton died on stage last year at his 70th birthday party playing. John Popper from Blues Traveler was shredding a harmonica solo, and he just like fell over dead.
That's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, like, all of Panic was playing. They had, I played this kid that was a black kid with a fro just jamming on Facebook the other day. I forget his name. He was there. He was playing. He was soloing. And they had Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi were on stage.
Wow.
So Dwayne Trucks, the drummer of this band that replaced Todd Nance, is Jimmy Herring's son-in-law. That's Jimmy Herring on the guitar. But he's also the nephew of Butch Trucks from the Allman Brothers. That was the drummer for the Allman Brothers. And Derek Trucks played in the Allman Brothers when he was 11 years old. That's Derek Trucks' brother playing drums right there.
Okay.
So it's just kind of like they're plugged into all these other bands. And like the very first time that Panic played at Red Rocks, they played with Blues Traveler. So, and then John Popper's playing a harmonica solo when Bruce Hampton, who was in a band for years with Jimmy Herring, passed away on stage. So when we saw Panic in Mexico last year, Bruce Hampton played a few songs with them. And then I met Bruce Hampton leaving for the airport and shook his hand. And then he died like a few weeks later.
Wow.
So I'm not really into Bruce Hampton, but it's a cool little connection.
Yeah.
He actually had an album called like I Love You, Arkansas or something like that.
Okay. Interestingly
enough, but all like Dave School's there on the bass. He's wrote a ton of articles for the Rolling Stone over the years. Their world percussionist over there, Sonny Ortiz, he's awesome. I saw him play at Memphis in May, and he was wearing a shirt that said Arkansas, real shady.
Real what?
Real shady. It had like a tree on it. It was funny, but they're a jam band. Some people don't like jam bands.
Right.
I do.
Right. And that'll be, I'm kind of purposefully avoiding that genre.
Of jam bands?
Yeah.
A lot of people do.
Just because one day I know it'll be such a discovery. And this is going to be the third time we talked about Rob, but Rob had made a comment on the podcast about how he doesn't watch trailers because he remembers going as a kid and just the excitement of everything being so new and so fresh. I mean, because when Star Wars first came out, nobody had seen anything like that. And you're like, this is amazing. And there's not too much in the world today that gives you that feeling.
I felt that way the first time. I never even listened to Panic until I saw him live.
Yeah.
And I literally was standing, it was at the amp, and I was standing up on the hill just like...
Yeah, right.
And I was mesmerized. And when they were done, they played like 23 songs. I was just like... It's like time stopped and is over and is fleeted. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, what did we just see?
Right.
And I've seen them, I think, nine times now. Right. Something like that. 7
I know when I discover them that I'll have that feeling. So
we'll see in two bands like this, like they have such a wide, like Drive By Truckers is that way for me. They have such a big catalog. Where the hell do you even start?
Right.
You know? Here's another one if you like the piano work of Mr. JoJo up there. This is a cover. I can't remember who sings it originally. Ride Me High. Let me me find out the original artist for you.
Yeah, he's very much into the vintage.
JJ Cale.
Okay.
Is the original recording artist.
He's got looks like the Hammond organ up there, and that sound is that Stevie Wonder.
Oh man, it's so funky, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad you can actually explain it to me, because I have no idea. I just know it sounds good when it goes in the ear. But so like at one of the concerts I saw him at, like he was playing some song where they were just shredding, and he was doing stuff like that, and they said way faster, and the guitar solo and stuff, and their percussionist is doing this, and he'll go to his hands, and he's doing this.
Right.
And they were going back and forth like a contrast. It was super cool to see him do that on the screen.
Just to give a local plug, in June there's going to be a concert at the Russellville High School Arts Center. I think they call that the Center for the Arts.
Center for the Arts, yeah. Is that the one Rob's doing?
No, this is a guy named Brian Faulkner, who, from a musician level, is very much on par. I mean, he's like, you got the next level, and then you got the level after that, and that's he plays that way. And they're doing. Did you hear about last November? I believe it was the Trans-Siberian Orchestra tribute show that they had out there.
Yeah.
That was him.
Really?
Yeah. And it was so well received that...
Is he local? Arkansan?
Yeah. He's him and his wife actually have a nonprofit here in town, ACME, ACME, the Arkansas Center for Music Education.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he... back in the 80s or 90s, they had a local band that see, this is why I wanted to hook my computer up, because I can't remember anything. Emergency Broadcast, I think, is what they called themselves. But anyway, he pulled in a lot of those guys to do the show out there for Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and it went over so well that he decided to do a show in June, and it's all going to be 60s, 70s, 80s, I don't know, maybe 90s rock, classic rock.
I love covers, man.
But right, I mean, for a local show, it's going to be something that will be.
I'll have to keep my eye on that, because it's nice having, like, we went and did Escape Room the other night. Yeah. It's nice having stuff to do local. A lot of times we go to Little Rock or Northwest Arkansas or out of state even, but it's nice having stuff, like a variety of stuff you can go see and do. And Russell's getting better about that for a 30,000 person town. Yeah, so what do you think of this Panic that you've heard just in the last few minutes? A couple of songs that I enjoy.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, I mean, that's how I knew it would be.
Yeah, it's... I've had to kind of become a scholar of their work to be able to process it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's and it did. I've been listening to it since 2014, and just it took me a couple of years to really get into them. So, but yeah, they're definitely a pleasure to take in.
Just so I have my facts right, I pulled that up. It's June 16th at 7 p.m.
Okay. At the Russellville Center for the Arts, is that what it's called?
Center for the Arts. It's called On a Summer's Night.
Okay, yeah, and I've even seen that photo
of classic rock. But yeah, I mean, those guys jam too. So I mean, it'll be a lot more structured. Obviously, they're doing songs.
Yeah,
popular songs. So
I wonder if Mr. Faulkner would want to come onto the podcast.
Possibly.
That's just been like, I'm trying to network with more people I don't know. And then too, apologies to the audience again, like I haven't, other than Cora doing a show review with me, like I've talked to a few women about coming on, 3 particular, but I haven't had any female guests. I
kind of thought about that for a minute.
Yeah, no, I haven't. And 2, part of it, it's going to sound kind of strange, but so since the studio's at my house, right, I don't know if anyone feel uncomfortable, and I would want Cora to like be here while we did it, just so they didn't, and like the people I might have on, I like know really well, so it's not an issue, but I've kind of held off. I've got several potentials that I just kind of like figuring out.
Yeah. Well, then maybe the coffee shop.
Exactly.
Once you get that,
being mobile will definitely help me.
Yeah, I mean, no, I get that.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
And there's been lots of times, making music, doing collaborations and things. Your home is your sanctuary. So when you get together with musicians, lots of times they'll bring people that are hanging out with them that, you don't necessarily want around.
Or to come back and rob you later.
Right. Right.
I mean, you joke about it, but it's like it could happen.
I mean, especially when I was recording in Nashville. I mean, fortunately, we was going into a studio, but there would be guys I was collaborating with who would bring friends with them, and they would be selling drugs out in the waiting room, and I'm like, well, okay, I didn't really want that going on at the session, but. So I get it as far as,
Well, and it's like one thing we may
the right
do.
setting for them.
I've been working on, we've been doing a lot of remodeling. Like we remodeled like a ton of this house, which is when we moved in July. And eventually we're going to build a carport. Like probably in the next 2-3 years, I'm going to do a carport and a new roof. And when I do that, I would kind of like to build a loft and build a custom studio up there, and underneath the loft, I'm pulling my cars in, but then underneath the loft, I want to roll out a mat and hang a heavy bag. And, like you said, a home sanctuary. Like right now, Corey and I are super young. We don't have kids. We have a dog and 2 Siamese cats. Oh. I know I just petted them when I went in there to use the restroom.
What's their names? The cats.
Mrs. Kitty.
Okay.
She's single, but she's still a Mrs.
Right.
Not Miss Kitty. That's a point of contention with some people. They will get corrected if they call her. And then Winnie, like Winnie Cooper from Wonder Years. Right? So those are their names, but they have a lot of funny nicknames too. So, but yeah, one's a seal point, that like the darker colored Siamese, and the other one is they're called lilac.
Okay.
It's like a gray, kind of a white and gray color, and gray head instead of like a dark brown head. But they're beautiful little cats.
We've taken one in recently, and I don't know what. I know it's some sort of Siamese, and we haven't named it yet.
Oh, there you go. Boy, girl,
It's a girl. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was meowing outside the window. Back before that 4 days of crazy rain that we had. I think this one that was the storm. So
man, it's crazy how many cats and dogs are roaming around like just strays. Yeah, I know somebody that works for animal control.
This one, I'm just speculating, but I think that I know there's a road that goes. We kind of live on it's a road, but it's kind of off the beaten path type road.
Like a county dirt road or something?
No, it's paved. It's just the only reason you would be on this road is to get to your house, generally. Yeah. But down at the bottom where it connects to a main road, there was a rent house, and this cat showed up like a day or two after people had moved out of that rent house. I'm thinking that maybe it just got left behind.
Well, yeah, our cats, when we moved here, because we lived in an apartment for like 7 years.
Yeah.
And when we moved here, they just knew something was up. And then when we got them here, they would only live in that room back there. They're like, and then they would get under the couch.
Yeah.
One of them's too fat to get under the couch, but one of them, there's a couch back there, and get under there, and we had to get her out and pet her. It's going to be okay, Mrs. Kitty. Real delicate. She got disappeared for 7 days.
Right.
Got out somehow and just gone 7 days. We got her back, and then she'd been all nervous ever since. So, like when we moved, they were just like, F you. I mean, literally. And now we've got them. So they finally got situated in the house.
Right.
And then we got a dog.
Great.
And he loves them.
Yeah.
But they hate him.
Yeah.
So now they won't come out of our room. They'd literally just live on our bed. The dog is 11 months old, but we bought him when he was 3 or 4. So they were here for maybe 6 weeks without the dog.
Okay.
But that's one thing that we were like, when we move, we're going to get a dog. So he's a total child. He's a chocolate lab, but he's 11 months old, and he's 100 pounds.
Wow.
He's huge, and he's a total child. So he can't be out while you're over. He'll jump on you. Yeah, but he's a freaking hilarious little dog too.
With the apartments that you were in, were you allowed to have the cats?
You know, not not really. I think there was a policy against it, but they didn't enforce it.
Most of the time there are. When me and my wife were dating, she lived in an apartment, and she had 2 cats, and some of the major stress events in her life was when the maintenance guy would come and change the air conditioner filter, or when she would come home and see one of the cats in the windowsill looking out enjoying the sunshine. So that was several years ago, but when they were able to live in a house and freely roam and jump up into any window they wanted, I mean, they loved it. It didn't, they didn't have to acclimate too much.
Yeah. But, see, the dog is the only thing stopping them. But at the same time, too, well, the one cat, Winnie, the fat one, if there's any food, she comes out and she's just like, I'll just beat this dog's ass. I have claws. Mrs. Kitty doesn't have claws. Oh. And, but she's just like, she has no fear and like kisses and spits at it and stuff. Just, and, it's funny, but she's like, she'll come in there and get a piece of meat or something and eat it and just rule the roost. But Mrs. Kitty, we think she like just never leaves, but like, it was like Cora was not feeling well the other night and like slept on the couch, got up at like 3 a.m. and like, was drinking. And then I got up one night and I told her this. I was like, I think Mrs. Kitty roams around when the dog's in his kennel at night and we're asleep. And she's like, I don't think she does. Because I came in the kitchen one day and she was like in there and like scurried back to the bedroom, like, and I was like, what are you doing in here?
Right.
And and Cora said the same thing when she got up at like 3 a.m. the other night. She's like, oh yeah, they definitely roam around at night. So
this is the first Siamese I've been around, and it's funny how different breeds have different personalities. So I'm not real familiar with Siamese yet, so I'm kind of getting used. The one that we have, it will not, it'll look at me, but I mean, it won't come close to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it like with your wife? Is it the same way?
No. She'll jump up on the couch with her, and my wife works at home, so she's constantly coming out and laying at her feet and everything. But
oh yeah, that's like here's when my cat wants to be my friend. Like it literally, when I was in college and stuff, I'd have my computer and she'd always like get up and lay right here. And
I remember that.
Like, oh,
come on, I remember
now.
Times like that. Yeah.
Wife's messaging me right now. Tell her
she's like, wrap it up. I want to come home.
She's probably asking about. I think she's going to the store. So still casting. Have you met my wife yet?
No.
She may be home as we're wrapping up or before we get done. She's probably headed back this way. So, well, so we brought this up a little bit earlier, but what do you think about from Siamese cats to guitars again? So I remember when I was getting out of high school and kind of started going to music stores on my own more and shopping more and getting more instruments and had been playing long enough to have experience with multiple instruments. Started off playing the bass and then started playing guitar, and I'm really into like percussion like this too, but I had a cajon. I traded for an acoustic amp a couple years ago, but I can do 2 things at once. I just can't do the third one.
Yeah.
Like if I have to use my feet while I'm doing this, ain't gonna work.
Right.
It's gonna something's gonna be the same. I can't separate 3 things out.
I get it.
But I remember with Fender and Takamine both. The gist I got is they were sort of bought out in a way. They kind of is a company, and maybe even they were saying Martin or Taylor one. I wouldn't swear to it. Kind of went through what Gibson's going through right now. in that they kind of get bought out and now they're all made overseas, or they're just like real generic. Is that what's going on with Gibson? Did that go on with other brands like these brands I mentioned, or what is going on with Gibson?
Well, yeah, two good questions. The first one, every guitar company right now is doing imports, which is what I call your value price stuff, which is usually about $1,000 or less. It's honestly what the majority of us are going to be buying. The domestic made stuff, Fender still has stuff made here, Martin, Taylor, Gibson. There are still companies that are making product here. It's usually your $1,000 and over stuff. Occasionally you'll see it
is crazy the difference between an American Strat and made in Mexico, price-wise.
Oh, price-wise. Yeah, exactly. Quality-wise, and I've been told, I've never been out there, but I've been told that the actual distance between the plants is like 50 miles. But price-wise, there's a huge difference.
Yeah, Telecasters and Strats both, I've noticed, is...
Yeah, but everybody does imports, and you'll hear, and I'll be talking with customers and tell them this, and whatever job they work at, they have products that are just like this too, in the fact that there's only a handful of factories making the majority of these guitars. So I've had Fender guitars in the store that were made by a company called Court.
Yeah. Do you sell Court?
I sell some Court.
I've seen Courts.
Yeah.
I think a music store in Clarksville where I grew up, they sold Courts.
Yeah, Court. And the quality is identical because they're using the same materials. Now, the spin that like a Fender will put on it is that we send our people over there and tell them how we want it. Basically, they're saying they oversee the production. They're not building it, but they had hands-on as far as telling them this is the way they want it. Basically, I feel like they're just, sending their designs and saying, make it like this. And they could send, trainers or management over there for a month or two. I don't know. But the bottom line is that quality-wise, if it comes into a shop like ours or any other guitar shop and it is set up properly, the neck is adjusted, we make sure the frets are level and all that.
Which is a regular thing that has to get done.
Right, yes.
At least on my acoustics. I don't know as much on an electric neck.
Wood instruments are very sensitive. And so when you make a wood instrument over in Asia and you ship it over here, who knows how long it's on the boat, it gets exposed to a lot of different climate changes. And once we pull them out of the box, we have to do some setups before it's playable. But once they're playable, there's not a lot of difference in quality between imports and domestics. Now, domestics will usually be a lot prettier. I mean, a lot more handcrafting will go into it. And but as far as the production models, the domestic stuff will have production models, which is assembly line stuff, and then they'll have custom shop stuff. Your custom shop stuff, which is your super expensive, is also a lot of handcrafting involved in that. So, everybody does that. Now, as far as where they've gotten into problems is when they kind of start cutting corners. Fortunately, my experience has been that even though these companies get bought out and they're the management are not guitar people, they're still guitar people building these products in the shops. They just don't get to make the business decisions. The business decisions is what's hurting these companies. Like Gibson, their problem is that, in my opinion, I mean...
Well, I saw you make a post about it, and I'm like, man.
Right. Right.
Because I like to talk about stuff's going on.
Yeah.
Right now, and I'd been following that same thing. That I saw you share the post, and you had an opinion.
Yeah.
It's like, man.
Yeah. It's I'm not tied in. I don't have any insider knowledge. But, I mean, this is our 44th year of business. We've seen a lot of companies come and go, and a pattern develops eventually. And a lot of the decisions that are being made ever since the current owners.
Do you remember the CEO's name by chance?
It's Henry. I can't pronounce the last name. I can't hardly even pronounce normal English words.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Every now and then someone throws out a $1,000 word, and I'm like, do what now?
I would be a terrific mumble rapper.
Yeah. Corey gets on to me for mumbling. I try not to do it on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I probably have a time or two.
But I think he's from South America or Central America.
Oh, wow. You ain't kidding. JUSZKIEWICZ. There's a girl in the UFC, and her name is spelled like that, but she's from Poland, and her name, looks kind of like Jetersek, but it's Young Jacek.
Okay.
And right. I'm telling you right now that you and I probably neither one can pronounce it. If you can't pronounce it, I know that I can't. I wonder where he's from, though. Poland. He's from Poland, same place as that girl.
Okay. I knew he was from somewhere else.
When I saw that CZ, I see that a lot in Polish names. They have Z's and K's and C's in them a lot.
Okay.
I don't know why, but just teaching European history and plus Poland, it's like a joke. They go on and off the map all throughout history. People take them over. There's maps that exist where they're not even on it.
Right.
That's the first country that Nazi Germany took over.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so this guy, what's his problem?
I just get the impression that him and a couple of buddies bought the company. Where most of us, when we want a Gibson, we go out and buy a guitar. I get the impression that he wanted a Gibson, so he went out and bought the company. And I think that happened in 84 or 86. But there are some people that feel like the quality has gone down. And I do see a lot of busted headstocks on.
I have heard, I know somebody that's got a Gibson with a busted headstock.
Yeah, really easy. Their headstocks seem to break on both Gibson and their Epiphone line, which is their imported guitars. Yeah. Now, Gibson's interesting in the fact that we also, for a long time, carried a brand called Samick.
Yeah, I played Samick guitars.
Samick was like Cort in the fact that they were an OEM builder, and Epiphone was, for about 20 years, Epiphone was their major line that they produced.
Yeah, I've seen some of like semi-hollow body Samics with the kind of like a Les Paul knockoff in a way.
So from about 84 to 2004, those Epiphones, the majority of them, to my knowledge, was built by Samick, and they're fine guitars. Now, since I was a Samick dealer, the word on the street, all the reps were telling us that Gibson wanted to buy the Samick plant. They like to own their facilities, which is fine. That's fine, but Samick did not want to sell to them. So around 2004, 2005, I think it was, you started seeing a lot of Chinese Epiphone started coming in because they went over to China and bought a plant, from my understanding. So there's a lot of people that feel like the quality has gone down. Now, anything with the Gibson logo on it, that's going to be American made. There is no Gibson imports unless it's a bootleg, which is a big problem because their guitars are so expensive that.
Yeah, and I will say this: I know someone that paid like $3,300 for, I guess like the low end Les Paul in 2017, and they got it, and it didn't had a major electronic issue with it, and didn't work.
That's unacceptable.
Yes. Now, he got a new one, and it works. It sounds beautiful. This guy's dad was a roadie for Journey and Van Halen.
Okay.
And passed away, probably from on the job. I don't know what the issue was, but I get the feeling from the way the guy posts. He came here and went to Tech, and he's in a band. Moved back to Austin, Texas.
Big music town.
Yeah, and but he is playing, and I want to say that his band is got some sort of little label deal going, and. But he's a really good job. Scored a really good job when he moved back, and is able to drop like $3,000 on guitars and stuff.
Right.
But he shreds. His name's Jim Baker.
Okay.
So, he had that, and I remember posting about it, and then he was chiming in on my status that you might have seen me share the same probably article on Facebook. I might even shared it from your article, but he was chiming in the comments on people were talking about quality issues, and he was saying that even though his came in broke or whatever, he had to get another one that, quality was amazing.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, you want it to be amazing if you spend $3,000 for it.
Absolutely.
But are you going to say it's amazing because I don't know.
Conspicuous consumption.
Yeah.
Right. They, so yeah, I've been to the custom shop in Nashville.
Cool.
When I went back for a NAMM show a few years ago, NAMM show is the trade industry, or is the show that all the manufacturers will display product at. And they do one in the winter in Los Angeles and one in the summer, which has alternated. It's usually Nashville, but sometimes they have done it in Austin. But there for a while, the summer, they call it the summer show, it had kind of dropped in attendance, and it was kind of declining. And so even though Gibson is based out of Nashville, they weren't even showing up to the show. But anyway, I contacted my friend, and I'm like, hey, are y'all going to be at the show? I'd love to come by and say hi. And he said, no, but feel free to drop by the shop. I'll give you a tour. I'm like, yeah, awesome. So I've actually been behind the scenes there.
What a cool guy to know.
Yeah. And they do some impressive work in their custom shop.
Does someone who works on guitars have a name?
Luthier.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if a luthier.
But to me, I associate that more with acoustic guitars. But I might make an exception for especially somebody like Gibson, who does a set neck, which is the neck that's built into the body, because it's all essentially one piece of wood when it's said and done. To me, when I hear the word luthier, I think more somebody who works with wood more than, with an electric guitar. Yeah, you got the wood body, but then you got the pickups and the wiring and all the hardware and stuff. But in my opinion, Gibson's problem is this guy started buying up all these different. He wanted to turn Gibson into a more than just a guitar company. He wanted to be. He bought home sound equipment, like again, I cannot pronounce this, but ONKY, or it's a home stereo product. Onik or something. He bought them. He bought something that had to do with Philips, or that's throwing up stuff that's really not important.
It's like surround sounds and
right.
You know what's coming back big time? It's vinyl.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is back.
Yeah.
So I could see when was he making those sort of moves?
It's been over a period of time. But he bought Cakewalk software. Unfortunately, though, what happened is that a lot of these properties he was buying, they went out of business. He bought Baldwin pianos. And I don't know, usually you buy something because you want to add it to your portfolio and expand. But a lot of the stuff he was buying
had already failed, or
was clearly failing according to reports. Their revenue statements or whatever they have was showing downward trends for a lot of these companies that he was buying, and he still bought them, and they ended up either shutting down the operations or whatever. So he was spending a lot of money bringing a lot of stuff into the fold that just wasn't panning out. and they were borrowing money to buy these things. So now they've gotten to the point where it's time to pay those bills, and they just don't have a large, I guess, attractive enough assets. So what's going to happen probably is that a company's going to come in and, I saw an email the other day, actually. The investors who had bought the bonds from them this previous time are actually trying to take the company over. Because typically, from my understanding, the way this works is that a company will offer bonds, and outside investors will come in and buy those bonds, and you got a certain amount of time to pay those bonds off. And if you don't pay them off in that time, then typically what happens is those investors are able to take ownership in the company and basically, I guess, end up owning and running the company.
Yeah, I've heard of that happening.
So right now, apparently, that's the struggle that's going on, is that the investors, it's come time for them to get paid, and apparently they just want to go ahead and take ownership of the company, but he's not wanting to give it up. Gibson will be fine. Gibson Guitars themselves. Whether he has to file bankruptcy and he sells the brand to somebody else, somebody will come along, and there'll always be a Gibson guitar, I think. Just
under different leadership.
Under different leadership, and hopefully, better leadership. But apparently, when I was researching it, a lot of people go all the way back to 1974, when ownership had changed hands back then, or it had changed ownership in the late 60s, but it wasn't until 74 until that ownership had their management into place. But something around 74, a lot of people will point to, saying that's when we really started seeing a decline in their quality, but I don't know.
Yeah. I haven't got to play a whole lot of Gibsons. I've known some people that have had them. I've known enough, at least two people have had to mention the headstock issue. I've
got an Explorer. I've got a Gibson Explorer. Just due to the fact that, I'm a Metallica fan, and James Hetfield plays a...
You going to the Metallica show?
No. I probably can't afford it.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not even... It's like a year and something in the future, and they've already maybe sold out or something.
Right.
It's like sometime in later 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
January 2019, I think.
Okay, well, yeah.
Yeah, but about a year away. I've seen them twice before in similar settings. Once was at the Municipal Auditorium in Nashville, and that was an awesome show. And then I seen them at the other arena, the big arena there in Nashville too.
I never got to see them, but they're not one of my favorite bands. I would see him, but I probably wouldn't drop like that thing. I don't know how much tickets are, but I bet they're expensive.
Yeah, probably so. I think the Verizon will be a good show. That's a good setting to see them in. Last year they did stadium tours, and I have zero interest in, setting up, 100 yards away.
Yeah, that was part of what I didn't like about the Tool concert. I wasn't too far away, but I didn't have good seats. Yeah. It was just, I had an obscure view of the stage, and there were some weird people sitting by me. So it was just kind of... You ever listen to Joe Bonamassa?
Recently.
I just saw him play at Verizon, but he did like an intimate show. They only sold out they didn't even... It was a lower deck and floor seating only.
Nice.
Yeah, and... he's been on a big tour, but he swept up in there and just killed it. Oh man, he's a child prodigy as well. Played with B.B. King.
Yeah, I saw some videos. Blues right now for me is that thing I'm discovering. It's always been there, obviously.
Yeah, but a little bit me too. That's like I was getting super into Zeppelin, and I still am, but I found out they plagiarized like 20 songs, and I was super sad because I hate Tony Robbins for being a plagiarizer.
Tony Robbins.
He's a motivational speaker.
Oh, yeah.
He has this Netflix documentary or something called I'm Not Your Guru. The Walk on the Coals guy. I'm not into his product or message, but I know several people that are like drinking the Kool-Aid big time. And dude's a millionaire. You got to give him his due, but
typically what I've found with guys like that is that the information lots of times the information they're given is legit. It's just not anything new.
Yeah, and that's what he fell victim to. And some of it was people that worked for him. Mm-hmm. But man, anytime you have like a ton of words that are word for word as some other guy's book that is along the same topics of your book, it's maybe a little bit of a concern. But yeah, I got super, you maybe heard me talk about this on the podcast, got super into Zeppelin's connections with Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, I heard you mention that in one.
And I've found out everything I could about it, but Jimmy Page was pretty much like a card-carrying occultist. All of the, like, every time I see a Zeppelin symbol now, I'm like, that's a Crowley symbol. Like, they all had different symbols for the members in the band, and a lot of people point to, they think there's this curse that caused Robert Plant's son to die and caused Led Zeppelin to break up and caused John Bonham. And what's the bass player's name? John Paul Jones? No?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
I think that is a bass player, but I can't remember if it's Zeppelin or The Who. Or
let's look it up. But apparently he was the only one unaffected by the curse of Aleister Crowley.
The bass player?
Yeah. But see, Jimmy Page bought the house that Aleister Crowley lived in.
Okay.
And it was allegedly haunted and like burned down suspiciously after Jimmy Page saw it. But he also owned an Aleister Crowley book. Yeah, it is John Paul Jones. So glad I didn't mess that up. Okay.
Awesome.
But they were all affected in these different ways, and everybody says it's because Jimmy Page was linked up with the occult and all this stuff, and I don't necessarily buy into that, but cool stuff to talk about.
Yeah, imagery.
Yeah. And it was, I am fascinated by Aleister Crowley. He went and studied in Egypt, and there's all these weird parallels between him and people that went on to start religions or cults that studied under him, or some people, and I can't say this 100% because I've talked to someone that said they didn't really agree with it or whatever, or maybe they just didn't know. But there's a rumor that L. Ron Hubbard studied with Aleister Crowley. I don't know how much that's the guy that invented Scientology.
Right.
So I don't know how much of that is factual, but this dude's also inspired Anton LaVey to create Satanism.
Okay.
So that's why I want to do. I want to do also a series of podcasts on like almost like minority religions, like Satanism. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses, like denominations in Christianity, Scientology, and just kind of like a lot of lesser known stuff that has a lot of international membership. I mean, it's 20 million people are a part of the Mormon Church. That and Scientology are both these American denominations that have formed. Yeah,
that probably would get a lot of people talking if you want a lot of
I know, right?
conversation about your podcast going out.
Yeah, so and I would approach it from like that would be more of a historical, philosophical. Like I would do it almost like a world religions course in a sense, except instead of talking about Hinduism and Buddhism and Catholicism or whatever, just talk about some lesser, basically everything you don't get in world religions. So
yeah.
Well, man, is it? Did you? Okay, so are you guys like maybe moving to a new location? Is that in the talks? I'm not trying to blow anything off. I can always edit this out.
That might need to be a Rob McCormick segment there. Matter of fact, when he brought that up, I was like,
I know, yeah. I was like, yeah, he dropped it, and then you were like, kind of being like a little conspicuous about it a little bit, or. Yeah. But I did. So, and you said you might have some news about some stuff you've been working on.
Well, there's a lot of changes going on right now, and I'm not ready to make them public. But maybe we can.
Stuff. Yeah. Well, hopefully you can come back on the podcast, man. It's been awesome sitting down. We've been going for over 3 hours.
Yeah, I know. So I thought maybe an hour. I'm like,
well, man. Here's the thing. That's why I wanted to have you on. I knew we could sit down and have a good conversation.
Yeah. So. In social settings, I'm typically very quiet.
Me
I'm
too.
the guy that sits in the corner, listens to everybody else's conversation, and really don't chime in very much. So I was like, well, this is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, well, hey, man, it seems like you're a pro at it. So, I mean, and like I said, when I come in, I'm like, well, I'm not going to explain any of this audio stuff to you, the guy that owns the store that sells the stuff I need.
Right.
But,
it's always changing. I mean, you come in looking for stuff I don't have. So I know that in the future, other people will probably be looking for those same things. So it causes me to research it and start carrying it. So...
yeah, well, I mean, it is crazy how much podcasting is.
When it comes to audio, it's unlimited, the possibilities of all the different connections that you can do. And you can hook everything up exactly right the way it's supposed to do, and it still doesn't work sometimes. I mean, obviously, no, you're not doing it.
I have been through that with this particular setup.
But, I mean, right, you'll plug it up and unplug it 3 different times exactly the way it's supposed to do. It doesn't work. 4th time you do it and it works.
Well, I think that when I'm going to re-network my cables and stuff, but I'm going to adjust I think I can get a little better quality audio on the camera. Like, so right now the mic feed goes into the camera.
Okay.
It records instead of any of this, picks up what we're doing through the mixer back into the camera, but we had to set the audio controls custom on the camera. And I think that we can get, like, I noticed when listening on YouTube, there's like just almost a little bit of like feedback or something, just like a ring. You notice it before we start talking. But I noticed it on other people's podcasts too. I'm not too worried about it, but I think I can adjust it a little bit.
Yeah, I've been impressed with the quality. The very first episode,
I told you I had a mid-cut button that was pressed. I guess when I got the mixer out of the box, I never pressed it.
Oh, okay.
But that's exactly, and you notice, like, if I were to go over there and press it right now, it was every one of those channels has the mid-cut on it.
Okay.
And it had gotten pressed down somehow. And I noticed that, too, because, I mean, I don't go back and listen to every episode, but really the first 7 episodes.
Yeah, the first 2 for sure. There's a big difference in the 2 voice volumes.
Yes.
But since then, I mean, it's on par with everything else I listen to.
Yeah, glad to hear it.
Now, sometimes, especially on my phone, when I'm driving in the car, I'll run it through my car stereo. And the other day on one of yours, I was listening to I could not get the car stereo loud enough.
I've noticed that on an episode or 2 myself.
I never have a problem on the computer. I never have a problem with headphones. But when I was running through there, I just was not able to get enough volume. And
I need to double check that in my car again too, because I noticed that on some of the earlier episodes I did.
Well, in music production, when you master a song, you can normalize the audio, and you're using GarageBand, right?
For now, yeah.
Yeah. And there might be a setting that you can... Normalizing usually raises the volume level across the board for the entire track.
And I can do that.
Okay.
I just haven't been. I may need to.
Yeah.
And that's like I haven't really thought about or figured out how to do it because I'm working on... Because I do think the YouTube feed is a better quality audio. But I do think I can take a little bit of that reverb out of there. But I noticed that exactly what you're saying on the audio only, and some people said it's only certain episodes. I don't know if it's guest. I don't know if it's all of them, but I feel the same. I've got that before.
Okay.
It's just on audio platforms.
And I know you're not trying to do a lot of editing after the fact, and that's great.
Well, it's easy to do that.
Yeah, right.
As well, and I wasn't thinking about doing this. Because that's why I do 2 separate feeds.
Mm-hmm.
So I submit this straight from GarageBand to iTunes to Podbean, then it redistributes back out into Spotify and CastBox and all of those.
Okay.
All of those other ones.
That might be why I've never had an issue on YouTube, because that audio is
totally
separate
feed.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes sense then.
Yeah, but yeah, I will. I'm going to look into that. That's a good point on.
But other than that, I think everything's been great. I'm super impressed.
Well, hey, thanks, man. Because I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, I do a little bit now, but I wanted to do this for a year, and then you don't know until you start doing it.
Yeah.
I kind of had. Then it was just getting my ideas in line, Man, now I'm just like, I'm telling everybody else, I'm like, hey, you should start your own podcast. I'll come on as a guest.
Yeah.
Because it's fun, man. I really, it's cool that this is something that people do, and that some people are very successful and make a 6-figure income with it.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Well, man, do you have a website or anything you want to plug before we wrap it up? I know you said you are working on an online store, or just anything, but people can get a hold of you, local audience, anything like that?
Yeah, we're down on Main Street, East Main. Here in Russellville, it's Highway 64, but in town they call it Main Street, 813 East Main Street. And you can come by the store. We're there Monday through Friday, 9 till 6. And on Saturdays, I'm not there, but Dad's there from 9 till 3. And right now, as far as the website goes, it's in development. Previously, up until now, it's been pretty much for informational purposes.
Yeah, SEO and search.
Yeah, just kind of giving an idea of some of the things we carry. Not all of them, but I'm working on trying to get them all up there. And right now, there's a few things you can purchase online and come into the store and pick up, but mainly I just got it up there so if somebody's like wondering, hey, I wonder if they got this particular model, and they can pull it up and then they can come see us.
Have you played with like Facebook Marketplace at all?
I've needed to.
I noticed some out of state, like around Missouri and stuff, music stores, like because Facebook, how they work is like when I was getting ready to buy this digital recorder from you, I was searching for digital recorder, like Portal Studios and different things on the marketplace. That's where I bought that djembe. Yeah. And I started noticing that Facebook was targeting me with actual businesses that were in the marketplace that were more than 30 miles out or whatever, it was like, hey, suggested you might like this from these people, they'll ship it to you or whatever. But I didn't know, like, we don't do any, like, really ads or anything on the marketplace, but I know some people do. I've noticed it's become a thing, even with, like, Amazon stores and stuff. Everybody's found what a big community Facebook Marketplace is. Yeah,
it's the next evolution. I think that's going to kind of, Amazon made Walmart worry. I think Facebook Marketplace is going to make Amazon worry because it does take things back to a local level.
I love it. And I'm probably about to buy a pair of bongos off of it. Yeah. From the same person I bought the djembe from. So.
Well, and, that's also, we're wrapping up, so.
Well, hey, man. I'm just trying to be, I try to be sensitive to people's time. I'm done Sunday. I'm done to sit here and do this forever as long as you're not trying to get home I'm not trying to take away from anybody's family time or anything, but obviously my wife is at the grocery store, so we're good.
All you're taking away from today is me raking up sweet gum balls.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, and I'm going to probably get it when I get home.
Did you see my dirt project going on out here? Yeah. So
is that going to be a circle?
We are going to do that, and I just got to plant a lot of grass seed, and I need to get out there again with a rake. So I got to go get the seed and the spreader probably after we wrap it up. So today is getting caught up around the house, and this past week is getting caught up after being on delay from chorus fight, and then I got, we're out of town, got promoted to black belt yesterday, so we're out all day, and it's just been weekends fly by, and today is just like, I think the last 3 days would be my 4th podcast I've done. And then we did a clip with Hausnick on gun control, so that's 5 spots. And I'm probably going to do that Goliath review maybe this evening. Okay. Keep putting off grading my test. Be right there. Pile this high underneath the bag. Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, well, thanks for coming on. Absolutely. Anytime you have anything you want to talk about, you got a show review, good movie, went to a concert, let me know. I'd love to have you back on as long as you're willing to.
Going to do that panel on Marvel movies.
Ooh.
Count me in.
Okay. Let's do that. I've been throwing that out there because I'm trying to find somebody to do it with. Yeah. I haven't seen all the Marvel movies. I haven't seen the last 2 Thors. And I haven't seen either one of Guardians of the Galaxy.
What?
I know, dude. I know. But I mean, everything else I've seen. Yeah. And I did not, obviously, Infinity War's not out.
Right.
But I don't think anything between that and what I mentioned Well, man, I didn't watch all of Age of Ultron either.
Okay.
I don't know why I didn't get into it very much. Which I thought it was better than Iron Man 2, but I didn't like Iron Man 2.
Okay.
We'll have to just do it a movie at a time.
Yeah.
So, or maybe that would be better to approach, like, let's sit down and talk about all 3 Iron Men. Or to go in order. That's one thing I want to do is, like, I did this with the X-Files. I don't know if you like X-Files.
It's been a while, but
yeah, you know, they had the
I
Monster. That's one of my binge shows.
Yeah.
They had the Monster, the weak plot line that's not connected, and then they have the main plot line. I want to do maybe some podcasts, or I just went back and watched it after watching the whole show, is just watch the Alien plot line.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 30% of the episodes. You
Right.
can do it in a way shorter amount of time, and it's its own plot. It's a standalone plot line. So I'm a big X-Files nerd too.
Yeah.
I want to believe.
Yeah. I was again a day one person on that. I mean, I watched when they first come out. It was groundbreaking. Nothing, you couldn't watch television like it. These days, I mean, everybody's emulated it. So
yeah. Well, hey, be brainstorming on how you think we should do that, because I'm open to doing it a movie at a time, which would take a while. How many Marvel movies are there now in that universe that are all connected?
30.
That's what I was thinking. 30 was exactly what I was thinking.
I know
that
they've done them in phases, and we're on getting towards the end of phase 3.
Ant-Man 2 is coming out.
Yeah, and there's usually maybe 10 per phase. I mean, it's been ambitious.
Yeah. No. Well, yeah. So, that's got some legs as a topic for sure. And the 2, I do want to watch them in order. So anything that gives me an excuse to do that, I'm down to.
So what you're talking about in order when you're saying, like, start with Captain America?
I can't remember if it's Captain America or Iron Man's the first one you start with. But there's a certain order if you watch them in.
Yeah.
And then you can also watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
alongside that at a certain time, and it all makes sense in the larger universe.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I would think Captain America, because of the World War
II.
Yeah, World War II.
That's what I loved about Wonder Woman, which is not a Marvel movie. But
yeah, right.
I liked how they spun the history into it. Same thing with Black Panther in 92 Oakland.
Yes. And Agent Carter, which was a 6-episode miniseries that aired 2 years, like over the Christmas break, when all the regular Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes were not in production or broadcasting. They did Agent Carter series, 2 seasons of it, and it's strictly 1940s, whenever. And those are really good too.
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, and they in my opinion tie in better with Captain America than S.H.I.E.L.D. does with the rest of the. Occasionally S.H.I.E.L.D. will drop little references here and there to the MCU, but for the most part, the Agent Carter was really good about tying in with Captain America movies.
Okay, I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah,
but I'll start. I'm gonna pull up the Marvel Universe ordering and get on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm right. I'm sure there's a ton of lists out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm a nerd for stuff like that. I'm a nerd in general, but anytime I can find an excuse to do something like that, well, I'm gonna watch these 30 movies. I've seen the entire Game of Thrones series multiple times.
Right.
So I have no shame. But well, I'll keep that in the back of my mind. Shoot me a message if you think anything, and we'll get rolling on that anytime you're ready. I'm looking forward to. I'm going to do a phone call episode here soon.
Okay.
I figured out how to do the side chain on my mixer and call somebody. So I'm going to do.
You're going to call them.
I'm going to call them, or they're going to call me one or the other, but it'll be just like, it'll be an audio only episode, but I can call people in California or whoever.
Awesome.
So
for some reason, I thought when you said that you were going to, hey, our number is blah, blah, blah.
I could do that.
Give us a call. Let us know what your question is. I was a DJ at one time, and
really?
I would not recommend doing that. You would be surprised at some of the phone calls and stuff that goes out over the air. Of course, back then, you had to worry about FCC stuff. Podcasts, you don't really care so much, but
especially on the audio. YouTube is getting more strict. Like, I arrived late to YouTube for this, I think, but I do still think, and they said this on my Adam Carolla masterclass, is that this is the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I was getting here late, and then they said they're like, this is the beginning, and they're really saying it's the beginning for audio, but they're saying it's still the beginning for video too, in terms of people that are popping up like this, and within their first year are doing multiple camera angles, and people that go from audio to video and start doing both.
Yeah. So, I mean, as long as your thing here is that, especially when you continue talking about the local stuff, if nothing else, you'll have a local audience. But with your MMA, that's going to be a national thing, maybe a world thing. So
could be.
Yeah.
The girl Cora's warming up with before a fight has got a fight coming up in the UFC in Chile. So her name's Andrea Lee, KGB Lee.
And she's doing what with her now?
She warmed her up.
Oh, okay.
So like before the fight, we hit some mitts and wrap hands and stuff, but they're back there kind of doing these drills to kind of get Cora sweating, because like you want to, like you sweat when you train. Like 5 minutes in, you're sweating, and you want to simulate that in a fight. You don't want to be sweating when you get out there. You don't want to start sweating after you get out there. And so we try and warm people up it helps prevent injury and other things too.
Sure.
But
yeah.
Anyway. Well, all right, man. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up. I'll talk to you next time we have you on, if not before, when I come and need something from the music store.
You got
Valley Piano, baby.
Yeah, you know how to get hold of me.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks.